My fiance was caught kissing my twin sister, as I literally just found out they'd been texting each other behind my back, all leading up to them kissing at a family reunion. And I'm honestly so heartbroken that right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 28-year-old female and I really need some advice. For some backstory, I'm engaged to my longtime partner and I'm in the process of planning our wedding. My fiance and I are at our family's lake house for a week-long family reunion. I've been super excited for this trip to have a much-needed break from work and wedding planning, and also to have a chance to see all of my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, and basically my whole family. Well, this morning my cousin pulled me aside and actually told me something completely unexpected. She said she went upstairs to grab some clothes, and as she was walking down the hall, she saw my twin sister and fiance talking quietly in one of the bedrooms. Then she said she saw them share a quick kiss. And just so we're clear, we are fraternal twins, meaning there's no chance we could ever be mistaken for one another. And honestly, I'm completely in shock. My twin sister and I have always been so close. My first thought was that there was no way this happened. I have never seen or noticed any tension between my fiance and sister, and they also have limited opportunity to be around one another. We live about an hour away from one another and they are busy with work. I cannot imagine that either of them would do this. I'm also wondering what to believe of what my cousin told me. I have no reason not to trust her, but I just want to believe that she saw something wrong. I don't really know. I mean, a kiss is really hard to mistake. So I'm currently resting up as I have period cramps and I just don't feel well. I then asked my cousin to at least keep this to herself so I can figure out what I want to do. We're all staying here together for the week until Sunday, so if I confront them now, I know this would cause a huge scene. However, I don't know if I can wait until we get back home, knowing that I'm just festering inside with this knowledge. So I'm turning to the internet right now to see what I need to do. I don't know if I need advice or I'm looking for support or what. I suppose any advice or comments are appreciated because right now I don't know what to do. Before we go any further, the original poster actually has an update that they wanted to share. Here's what they had to say. Okay, so after going back and forth on whether I should try to snoop through my fiance or my sister's phones, or just sitting everyone down and asking what happened, I decided to go through with the latter. My cousin actually came back later to my room to check on me, and we had a brief conversation. She let me know she supported whatever my decision was, and she would be there to back me up if I needed that. Now, while it was sweet, it kind of squashed any thought that my cousin could be manipulating the truth. And honestly, after that conversation with her, I couldn't keep holding this in. I then got the four of us together and I laid it all out there. I told them that my cousin came across them talking in the upstairs bedroom and had witnessed them kissing. And honestly, whoever told me to tell them what I knew and then zip my lips, seriously, I need to thank you. I didn't even have to ask any questions because I could see the guilt flooding over my sister. It seemed like my fiance was trying to find a way to backtrack, but then my sister started profusely apologizing and crying. While she's crying, my fiance tells me it was a mistake and only one kiss. And it's here that I said I wanted them to show me their phones, and if it was only one kiss, I shouldn't find anything. Well, my fiance hesitated again, but I told him that we would be done if he didn't let me see it. From what I could find, my sister started flirting with my fiance, starting off with compliments. I don't know if she was just stroking his ego, but their text messages were very much so flirty in nature. Up to this point, I'm pissed but unsure what this means for our relationship. That is until I get one of their last messages that was sent this morning from my fiance. He literally said, "I know I should regret that, but I don't." I then told him to pack up his crap and that we would talk about this at home. I told my sister I was disgusted and that she should leave me alone. So I haven't technically called anything off, but I'm going to take the next couple of days to really sit with things. I can't imagine being able to go back to him after all of this because right now I feel really sick. I don't want to be anywhere near my sister, but I would rather be here to have space from my fiance. I think right now I just haven't truly processed what this means as I'm seeing red. And as mad as I am with my fiance, I feel so betrayed by my sister that has quite literally been with me through all of my ups and downs. So honestly, I am so distraught and I seriously just don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, this is some heavy crap, dude. Like seriously, this is unbelievably toxic and I can't believe that your fiance and your sister did this. But worst of all, your fiance doesn't regret any of it. Like he literally admitted that in a text message, dude. Like what's going on right now? Your sister is a snake and your fiance is a piece of garbage. Like dude, what's going on right now? And I think your tactic of just sitting there and letting them talk was the best thing possible because either someone's gonna lie or someone's gonna freak out and start crying. And funny enough, both of those things happened. So yeah, I don't blame you for being upset and I don't blame you for taking your time to figure things out, but I can definitely speak for myself when I say that there's no way I would ever marry someone like this because you're dealing with someone who is willingly able to like ruin your life and ruin your family in one fell swoop. And the fact that he feels no remorse for this, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for a new car my mom bought me that I quite literally told her I do not want? Because she seriously expects me to pay her back when I turn 18. And at this point, I'm honestly so frustrated that I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So I was gifted driving lessons by my mom a few months ago as a late birthday present, and I was very grateful and very happy to go to the lessons because it's a skill that opens up more job opportunities as I'm currently finding it hard to get a job. She said I should buy a car with the savings account I receive when I turn 18, and I have said multiple times I do not want a car, and I don't want to spend any of that money before I've even received it. She was even going to view cars and I wouldn't go, and I made it very clear that I was not interested. I have a bus pass, so I don't need a car for travel, and when I leave for university, I will have literally no use for it. Well, while I was away on holiday with my dad, she went behind my back and bought me a $4,000 car I wasn't expecting. When I saw it, I started crying as I thought she bought it from her own pocket, and I was incredibly grateful. But the next day, she took me for a drive in the new car, and I said I was so excited to have my own car, only for her to start shouting at me and tell me that it wasn't mine until I was 18 and when I paid her back. Now, my dad estimated there would be about $7,000 in the savings fund, which I am eternally grateful and thankful for, but I don't think over half of that money should be spent on a car. I told her I would have appreciated her telling me before she bought the car, and I would have liked to have had an input on the decision. And when I said that, she just kept getting angrier. So I finally told her I would not be paying her back. She said that's what the account was made for, and that I'm going against my parents' wishes. Well, ever since then, she has been screaming at me, calling me a thief, saying that I'm a liar and a cheater. She has even started asking me for things that she has bought for me back, such as the new pair of trainers that she bought me, since my old ones were literally falling apart, and I was just getting made fun of at college for it. She also gives me some money for food, which she has now stopped, and she won't even look at me. I've spoken to my dad, and he says the money in the account was for me to spend on whatever I like, but my mom obviously doesn't agree. I understand completely this is a minor issue, and I will still be getting a lot of money, but for me, I'm more concerned about the way that she's handled the situation, even though I'm not entirely surprised about what she did. So seriously, am I the jerk for not wanting to pay for a car I don't even want? Because right now, I'm honestly very upset. Okay, this is so counterintuitive, it's not even funny. So you're telling me she bought you a car that you didn't want out of this account that she's been putting money into, and is now trying to be like, you owe me money for this. And it's like, dude, why would you pay for a car that you didn't want, that you didn't buy? She's almost trying to like put you in debt retroactively in the future for something that you didn't purchase. And it's like, dude, is your mom an idiot or what? Because as far as I'm concerned, that savings account is not yours until you're 18. And whatever money's in there, whether it's $3,000 or $7,000, is, in my opinion, completely irrelevant until then. So there's no possible way you can owe her money in the future for something that she's spending right now on something you didn't ask for. That'd be like me buying someone a computer and being like, oh man, when you're 18, you're gonna owe me a lot of money for this computer, because then at that point you could be like, okay, well forget it, I don't want it. In fact, I never even asked for it. Why are you somehow indebted to her for something that she bought that you don't want and you told her you don't want? Like, this is so backwards and unnecessary, it's just not even funny. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and I think your mom is being incredibly weird. I feel that my friendship with my former roommate is coming to a close, as it really seems like she's changed for the worse ever since I moved out. And now I'm wondering if I might be overreacting in this situation because everything seems incredibly weird, and I seriously just don't know how to handle it. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I met my best friend freshman year of college. We clicked instantly despite being polar opposites, and for the past 3 years, we've basically been joined at the hip. We've lived together in every apartment, we've shared rooms, we've traveled, done groceries together, so much so that we started calling each other our home wife. For over a year, I'd been on a wait list for our dream apartment. Exponentially cheaper rent, a private room and bathroom, close proximity to the school, and less roommates. The first time I was offered a spot, I turned it down because they only had room for me and we are supposedly a package deal. Well, fast forward a year and we're currently living in an 8-girl, 4-room apartment. My friend's family member was planning to move in with us so that they could have a support system while starting school for a second time. About a week before their move-in date, the dream apartment called, and this time with 2 spots for the upcoming school year. Well, I told my friend immediately, and when I said this, she was torn. She didn't want to abandon her family member, but she also didn't want to pass up the apartment. But after thinking it over, I decided to take the contract. I'm a broke, fully independent student. I don't have a car, I have no family help, I'm working full-time while in school full-time just to afford tuition and food. Saving money is survival for me, which at first is something that I thought she understood. She eventually chose to stay at our current apartment because her mom bribed her to, and we plan to transfer my current spot to her family member so they could share a room with people that they're familiar with. But here's the thing, her reaction ever since then has been really weird. She's been shutting me out, saying we won't see each other again because we'll be too busy, even though we'll literally live like 2 minutes away on the same block. I have suggested Sunday dinners, study nights, watch parties, etc., which she flat out says she won't put in the effort because she's a homebody and she's too lazy for that kind of thing. Now, for some extra context, I know my friend doesn't love socializing, but her mom has made it my chore to help her socialize at least once every couple of months. Despite her mom constantly asking me to take her out, I won't force her into situations that she doesn't want, but she still gets super upset when I go hang out with my other friends, and she's pretty direct about it. Not because I didn't think to invite her, as she hates pretty much everyone I know, but because I should be spending more of my time with her. On top of that, I've been the only one to ever clean for the two of us, despite multiple talks about it in the past, and was refused any help with apartment hunting this entire time, simply because she has a different budget, which also means she would miss out on video game time. At times during our friendship, I felt more like a nanny than a friend, especially these past couple of months. For years, I've prioritized finding places that fit both of our budgets, but she's always been financially supported by her parents, namely with rent, groceries, the car, and school, so the cost of things has never really been an issue for her. I've compromised before to make sure that we could live together, but this time I chose myself. And now I'm honestly wondering if she's ready to let our friendship just completely fizzle out just because we aren't under the same roof, and I'm the only one trying to make plans, plus doing all the maintenance work in the friendship. Maybe this friendship has just run its course. So am I overreacting by thinking about ending it here instead of dragging out what feels like a one-sided friendship? Because right now I really just don't know what to do. Oh man, yeah, it doesn't sound like she's a good friend at all. Like seriously, it seems like she's like only a friend out of convenience instead of one who's like really willing to like go to bat for you. And that just straight up sucks. You deserve to have friends who care about you and have your best interests in mind, especially when it comes to your living situation, man. Like, why is she so lazy about this? And honestly, if there's not like a lot of socializing going on in this lady's life, then that falls on her. That's not your responsibility. Like, of course you can invite her and be like, hey, come along with me, let's do this thing, it'll be fun. But you can't force her to go. If she's too lazy and she's a homebody, well then congratulations, that's what you're gonna be. Like, you shouldn't have to stifle your social interactions with others that she clearly hates for some stupid reason, just because she's too lazy to find more friends and like expand her network. Like, that's so dumb in my opinion. Like, I just can't stand people who act like that. They want to hold you back all because they've stunted their growth socially. And I don't know about you, but like the fact that parents are like, I don't know, bankrolling her entire life, like that doesn't seem healthy. She literally has everything handed to her and she has like no struggles in life. She's coming from a place of like intense privilege, so it's like, okay, well, what are we supposed to do here? So no, I don't blame you for feeling that way, and I don't think you're overreacting. It sounds like she was never a good friend, and that's really sad to say, and I'm sure you don't want to hear that, but I really think that might be the truth, especially with the way she's been acting. Am I the jerk for ignoring my best friend's calls, even though I know he's only gonna ask me for money? Because he still owes me a lot of money from the previous loan I gave him, and at this point I'm honestly exhausted and I just don't want to deal with that ever again. Here's what's going on. Okay, so this one has been kind of eating me up, so I'm throwing it on the internet for someone to help me out. I'm a 28-year-old male and I have this friend who we will call Sam. I've known this guy for more than 10 years and we are best friends, but we live in different cities for our jobs. A couple months back, he was having some family issues and needed about 20,000 rupees, which is about $200 in American currency. He promised he would return it within the month and I trusted him. I didn't even think twice. Well, fast forward to now 8 months later and I still have not received a single dollar back. Now, I brought this up twice, but both times he just said to me, bro, I'm sorting it out, just a few more days. But of course, nothing happened. Now, trust me, I get it. Life's tough and I'm not heartless. But recently, he has started calling me non-stop, and I just knew that he was gonna ask me for more money. So you know what? I just didn't pick up the phone. I didn't want to deal with another sob story, another guilt trip, and I do feel kind of crappy about it, but also, I'm not his ATM. I have helped him once and he still owes me, and now he's acting like I owe him more just because we're friends. So am I the jerk for ghosting his calls when I know he probably is just gonna ask for money? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, first of all, I don't blame you for turning him away because this is some stupid behavior. This guy's literally treating a friend of 10 years like an ATM instead of being respectful and actually paying you back for the last time you loaned him money. And to that end, I don't blame you for a second for being like, I'm not dealing with this, I can't do this right now. Because yes, he is only using you for money. He doesn't ask you for anything else, and he's only getting in contact with you when he wants some quick cash, and that's honestly not fair in my opinion. So if he really is a good friend and you really are best friends, then maybe it's time to talk to him and be like, look, you can't keep treating me this way, I don't appreciate this. And if he really is a good friend, he'll understand, but if he freaks out, then clearly this friendship was pretty shallow. Because you deserve to be treated way better than someone's personal ATM machine. My stepbrother is unbelievably entitled, as his rich parents have spoiled him with basically anything he's ever wanted his entire life. But after he tried that crap with me, I ended up having to shut him down, giving him a newsflash about how the world actually works. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I have a stepbrother who's been making my life a living nightmare since the day my mom married his dad. Don't get me wrong, I've tried to be understanding and welcoming, but his sense of entitlement is suffocating. Now, here's the thing. Our parents are loaded, like crazy rich loaded, and they've spoiled him rotten since day one. He's never had to lift a finger to get what he wants. If he wants a new car, he gets it. If he wants a fancy vacation, they're gonna book it for him. If he wants someone to do his laundry or cook his meals, well, consider it done. But what's even more infuriating is that he started to expect the same treatment from me. He'll show up to my apartment unannounced, expecting me to drop everything to hang out or do favors for him. He will borrow money from me without paying me back, or use my stuff without even asking. And if I ever try to set boundaries or tell him no, he gets angry and acts like I'm the one who's being unreasonable. But the final straw came last weekend. He showed up at my place expecting me to drive him to a concert because his parents had forgotten to get him tickets for the VIP meet and greet. When I told him I had plans and I couldn't take him, he had the nerve to get upset and accuse me of being selfish and not supportive. And it's at that moment that I had simply had enough. I sat him down and I told him, listen, I'm not your personal servant or your ATM. I'm your stepsister, and it's time you started treating me with some kind of respect. You've been handed everything on a silver platter your entire life, and it's made you into this entitled brat. Well, newsflash, the world doesn't owe you a living. You need to start taking responsibility for yourself and your actions. When I said this, he looked at me like I had slapped him in the face. I guess nobody's ever told him the hard truth before, but you know what? I'm not sorry. Someone seriously needs to knock him off of his pedestal and teach him what it means to be a decent human being. Okay, honestly, good for you. This is like seriously needed because this guy does sound incredibly entitled. Like, holy crap, this guy gets new cars and fancy vacations whenever he wants, and then he goes to you expecting the exact same thing but with like concert tickets? Like, what's going on right now? If his parents are so loaded, why go to you to try and get any kind of money? Just go to them and be like, Mommy, Daddy, I need the VIP tickets, please. And then I'm sure they'll throw it at him just so he stops talking to them. Which, by the way, raising your kids like that is not healthy and really stupid, because then you get an adult 22-year-old stepbrother like the original poster has to deal with, who literally has everything handed to him and just doesn't understand what the word no means. So yeah, overall, good for you for putting him in his place, because this guy sounds incredibly spoiled, and that is definitely not something that you should have to deal with in the slightest. Am I the jerk for backing out of helping my sister babysit her kids? All because my mom basically forbid me from helping her out. Because this has caused a lot of infighting and I really don't know what to do now. Here's what's going on. I'm a 19-year-old female and I have two sisters who we will call Rue and Becky. Both have 4 kids each, all under the age of 8. For context, I babysit Becky's kids for free all the time, at least once a week or every other week, whether she has a party, a wedding, or just wants to have a date night, and I've never complained about it. A few days ago, Becky asked if I wanted to go to New Jersey with her because she needed to buy some things. Well, I said no to her and then she just straight up hung up on me. But yesterday she asked again and I said no again. And it's then that she told me the real reason she wanted me to go. She wanted to go with her friend, but when she told her husband, he said that he didn't feel comfortable with her taking all 4 kids to New Jersey alone. And for a bit of context, this is like a 2-hour drive each way. She said I could either go with her to help out the kids or watch them at her house. So I just chose to watch them at her house. And for context, and I didn't tell her this, but the last time I went to New Jersey with her, it was an absolute nightmare. And trust me, that's a story for another day. Well, she agreed to this and I went to go and tell my mom. But when I told my mom, she immediately flipped out, saying Becky takes advantage of people and that it's not my responsibility if her husband doesn't want her alone with the kids, and that if it is an issue, he should take off work and take the kids with him. My mom then told me that I wasn't allowed to watch them simply out of principle. I then called Becky and I told her that I simply couldn't do it. And when I said this, she called me a jerk because she's been wanting to go to New Jersey for a while and I apparently knew that. Now, I thought that was the end of it, but it just completely blew up from there. It turns out my mom was also going to New Jersey that day and called Becky to see if she wanted anything. Becky then hung up on her, which made my mom furious, and Becky later called Rue to vent. But Rue said that she didn't blame me at all because she remembers how bad the last trip was. Now, Becky is saying I started a whole mess because I told mom, which caused a fight between the two of them. She said that she doesn't ask for much and that if she can't rely on her sisters, then who can she rely on? I feel like this got blown way out of proportion, and maybe I should have just told her the truth from the start about why I didn't want to go. And now my other two sisters are also saying I'm the jerk, and while it's not for saying no, it is for just not telling Becky the truth from the start and dragging mom into it. So seriously, am I at fault here? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I gotta be honest here. Becky sounds incredibly high maintenance, and this would probably be the last time I would ever babysit for her ever again if I was in this situation. Like, this is some crazy entitled behavior in my opinion, and seriously, you do not deserve this in the slightest. Because guess what? Becky's children are her responsibility and not yours. And yes, you've helped out in the past, but like, the way she's acting is just completely out of line. Because you have every right to talk to your mom about whatever you want to talk about. You're 19 years old, for God's sakes. You're not a kid anymore, and you definitely can make your own decisions. So across the board, I think everybody else in this story is a massive jerk, especially if they're somehow blaming the situation on you, because in my opinion, you didn't do anything wrong. And if anything, they gotta get their priorities straightened out, because this is definitely not your problem.
My mother-in-law demands I give her $5,000 or she'll make us homeless. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. This story is extremely hard for me to tell because I'm still dealing with the effects of it. However, I feel like I need to, because this story features the most entitled parent I've ever met in my life. This is the story of how my life has been ruined because, like the title states, I refuse to pay my fiancé's mother $5,000. It started out simple enough. In August of 2019, when my fiancé and I were dating, my parents, who I was staying with at the time to care for my stepmother after a surgery, wanted me to leave because they couldn't sleep with each other as often as they wanted. They told me this in a very abrupt manner and expected me to leave fairly quickly, giving me no time to prepare. My fiancé kindly asked his mother, who he was staying with, if I could live with them long enough for us to get an apartment together. He stressed to her that it would be difficult for us to get an apartment ourselves just starting out, and that while we could cover all the monetary expenses, we would most likely still need a cosigner. She promised both me and him that if we couldn't qualify for an apartment by ourselves, she would cosign for us. So I moved from Illinois to Florida. Within a week of me being in the house, my fiancé's mother was making our lives miserable. Despite me landing a job within a week and having to work late nights for said job, she would come into the living room each morning at varying, stupidly early hours to tell us we needed to do something productive. Meanwhile, she would go back to bed to sleep until 6 a.m. She would complain that we weren't cleaning the dishes we had used to make a meal that we had just made and were still eating. She would gaslight and pick petty fights with my fiancé, then play the victim, like a true narcissist. It got so bad, a few weeks in, we decided to rent a hotel for the weekend, just to get away from her and have some alone time. We had our apartment picked out anyway. All we'd need to do when we got back was sign some paperwork and we'd be away from her, right? Wrong. After the weekend, fiancé's mother drove us back to her house. On the drive back, she sprung something on me. She wanted us to pay her $5,000. For context, my fiancé was going to be receiving a $9,000 medical settlement a few months from that point. Before he met me, he had told his mother that if he was still single, he would give her $5,000 toward a trailer that they would both own and live in together. Since my spouse and I were dating and very serious at the time, this was extremely confusing that she would demand this. My fiancé tried to explain to her that he had only promised to give her money if he was single. She was having none of it and attempted to gaslight him about it. When that didn't work, she turned to me and requested that I pay her the $5,000. I only had about $5,000 in my bank account at the time, so I couldn't do that and pay to rent an apartment at the same time. When she realized she couldn't squeeze blood from a stone, my fiancé's mother finally declared, "Well, I guess you don't have a cosigner then." With my fiancé being on SSI due to injuries that left him disabled and me making minimum wage, her refusing to cosign on an apartment essentially left us without any housing options. Florida requires applicants to make 3 times the price of the rent on any given place, and rent in our area is very high. Finding a roommate situation that accepts couples is nigh on impossible, and renting houses were out as well, once again due to not having enough income. My fiance's mother's behavior worsened. With nowhere to go, we jumped ship and moved to a local hotel, but only 3 months of this drained our finances. We then couch surfed with some of my fiance's acquaintances, but a lot of them were not good people, and we were used and stolen from several times. We ended up sleeping in the deep freezer of an abandoned Hooters, until the building was almost torn down on us by construction workers one day. After that, my fiance's mother bought us a tent. How nice of her. And we ended up living in the woods while I tried to hold down my job. We've been homeless on and off for 2 years now. I've been assaulted twice because being homeless has put us in dangerous and unsafe situations. I've witnessed someone almost shoot my spouse. My fiance's mother didn't care. It even seemed like she enjoyed watching us suffer. Finally, in early 2020, when we were practically begging on our knees, my fiance's mother co-signed on an apartment, a 2-bedroom model we couldn't afford, but she insisted it was that or nothing. But after everything was finalized, she told us we couldn't have roommates. We had to try and keep ourselves afloat during the pandemic, something that ruined my finances more than they already were. When our lease ended in April, my fiance's mom insisted she fulfilled her promise, so she had no obligation to help us, even if that action consigned us to the streets again. We're homeless again now, and she continues to lie about us to the rest of the family, saying we ruined the apartment, which we left in perfect condition, and saying that's the reason she won't co-sign for us again. To tie up this story, I recently found out that refusing to co-sign and watching our finances dwindle was very much intentional on the mother's part. During the weekend, my fiancé and I went to the hotel for our weekend escape. His mother went to a family get-together. We weren't invited to this event. My husband has DID in addition to his physical limitations, and the rest of his family ostracizes him because he's crazy. He's a DID system who has well-behaved alters who all work well together. So this is utterly ridiculous, but they've treated him this way his whole life. During the family event, someone joked that I probably had more money than my fiance's mother. The woman gets $5,000 a month due to a combination of retirement pension and money she inherited from her late husband. I doubt it. According to a family member, she calmly said in response, "Let's see how much money that witch has when I'm done with her." It's one thing to not like your son's girlfriend, but this is just absolutely insane. You've literally ruined both of their lives. You've completely drained them financially. And only when they're on their last legs do you finally give them any little bit of support that you know they won't be able to uphold. She doomed them to fail. It's really sad to hear about something like this. None of this should have been necessary. All that was required was a signature. And instead, this is what everything came down to. Does she really feel like a good mother putting her son in this situation? And over what? Jealousy over someone else's income? I just can't wrap my head around someone like this. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe. Coworker tries to make me feel lower than him by forcing me to call him by his formal title, so I insist that he do the same for me. Years ago, I was working for a university as a secretary for a rather large department. I was told by the chair to call everyone by their first name, rather than the formal Dr. So-and-so. I complied and life went on with me using informal names and them doing the same for me. However, about a year later, I called to Dr. So-and-so in the next room to ask a question. It was benign enough and still respectful using his first name. Not long after, I received an email. He had addressed it to me as my first name and stated that I needed to call him Dr. So-and-so and not to use his first name. I knew this was a way to establish his superiority over me, but I was not having it. I may have been a secretary, but I was still a human being who deserved respect too. I wrote him an email back, addressing him as Dr. So-and-so. I agreed to call him by his formal name, but I insisted that he do the same to me. I am no longer original poster, but Mrs. Doe. I copied the department chair and executive aides so all were in on the loop. He went to the chair to complain, but she sided with me. And so it began. From then on out, it was Dr. So-and-so on every correspondence and when I spoke to him. If he addressed me as Rasili, I would remind him that I wanted to be addressed as Mrs. Doe, and would not answer until he addressed me as such. This really got on his nerves. He did not want to be the only one to call me by my formal name, as it messed with his need for superiority over a peon. It only took less than a week before he wrote me again. This time, it was to say to please call him Paul instead of Dr. So-and-so. No apology to me, just a resounding white flag of surrender. I took it as a small win for the peons and proceeded to call him Paul. I continued to work in that department for 8 years, and we never had another problem like this. Wow, somebody really has a superiority complex, don't they? Honestly though, you handled this the best way you could. You just ended up embarrassing the guy, which is the exact opposite of what he wants. By him establishing that rule with you and no one else, he made himself look lower rather than higher like he wanted. He really just showed how petty he was. Jerk developer thinks he knows more about our code that we've been working with for years than we do. I worked as a developer for a company that built and managed the software behind a rapidly growing online e-commerce store that sells tech gadgets and accessories, which I'll refer to as Mega Store for this story. I worked in a Central African country. The Mega Store started off small, and my boss built the original website on risk for a cut of the commission that Mega Store earned. Side note, as it is important for later, the commission that Megastore gained from the sale of an item on this site would be split on purchase. The majority of the commission would be paid directly into Megastore's bank account, and a smaller portion would be paid into my boss's bank account. As the popularity of Megastore grew, so did the demands on my boss, and he was able to build a company around servicing Megastore. While he did try to grow his client base, none were the same size or scope as Megastore, and thus were not able to carry the company. Megastore was approached for a buyout by a company who we'll call Bad Company Inc., with their own internal development team. Part of the buyout deal included ending the revenue sharing agreement with my boss, an external development company. At the beginning of the process, everything was positive, as my boss arranged a big payday and the deal was signed. He had managed to get a great deal because he had positioned that this buyout would kill his company, and thus he and his staff needed to be compensated. The buyout took several months, and by the end, the relationship between Bad Company Inc. and my boss had completely broken down. My boss had managed to secure another large client, and thus didn't need to close his company. Because of this, Bad Company Inc. said that they didn't need to pay my boss a payout. A lot of these meetings were above my pay grade. So we're in the final days of handing over the entire site to Bad Company Inc. and their internal CTO, who we'll call Jerk Dev, who had complete hatred for the code that ran Megastore as it was a bastardized version of an open source platform. He considered himself a purist, and if the code wasn't custom built for the purpose, it wasn't worth anything. So back to my boss. He had managed to keep some version of the original deal in place. But in the preceding weeks, he had made a big threat to Bad Company Inc. that he would do something funny with the code that handled the commission split. It was very much a threat and blowing off steam, as he couldn't legally do it, nor was it actually in his nature to do it. All talk, no bite. However, this outburst did create a situation where Jerk Dev did not trust us to remove our code that handled the commission in our favor. So, on the final build that we're required to hand over, we were meant to remove all code that handled the commission, and Jerk Dev would implement new code to handle the commission and then deploy it to the live website instead of us. The official documentation was reworded from the supply and deploy handover version to just the supply handover version. Great, less work for us. So, D-Day arrived. We had actually completed the build a few days earlier, with commission sharing code completely removed. And we're just sitting on this version, so we could hand it over on the day as contractually required to do so. So we handed it over in the morning and we're all planning to head out for a long lunch. Just before we left, we checked Megastore for the last time and noticed that Jerk Dev had already deployed the handed over version. We were puzzled, as we assumed that any development on the commission code would require extensive testing. We logged into the new site and saw that no code for handling the commission in any fashion was there. Nowhere. There was nothing. We logged into the payment gateway and there were no logs there either. This meant no commission was being deducted at all, so Megastore was losing 100% of their revenue. We immediately reached out to Jerk Dev via multiple calls, which he rejected until he eventually answered and yelled that he was busy and that we should stop calling him, followed by him hanging up the phone. So my boss, concerned that this somehow would be thrown back into his face as the funny thing he threatened to do, instructed us to do a hotfix and deploy it to the server without JerkDev's approval, which we did. It was a messy fix, using the old code. We put all the money into the Megastore account and only 1 cent into my boss's account, as something had to be deducted for the code to work. 10 minutes after deploying the hotfix, JerkDev called accusing my boss of stealing. Many heated words were shared, followed by my boss putting JerkDev on speaker and instructing all of us to quickly record the conversation on our phones. JerkDev informed us that he had already implemented the code, as he had noticed the completed build 2 days earlier. We tried to tell him that something was wrong, and he just replied that we were too simple-minded to understand custom code, as we were just simple web admins, nothing more, and that we had 30 minutes to remove the hotfix code. My boss got him to repeat the instructions one more time and state that we had supplied a build that satisfied the conditions of the agreement and then hung up on him. As soon as he had uttered those words, it took 5 minutes to revert the code. We were then instructed to all go to the lunch venue and leave our phones in our cars. Because D-Day was an end-of-the-month kind of deal, it happened to land on a Friday, so the loss of income was only reflected in the bank on the Monday or Tuesday of the following week. This meant the problem was only picked up after running commission-free for 3 to 4 days. My boss is aware of the amount of money lost, but we're not. However, we assumed it cost the company the commission on between 1,000 to 4,000 individual sales. The CTO did supposedly try to spin a story that our boss had tried to do something funny, and all my boss did was provide the recordings of their conversation, which shut that crap down. My boss got his payout, all the staff got a great bonus, and we noticed that JerkDev's LinkedIn status changed a few weeks later to seeking broader challenges. I don't know much about code development and stuff like that, but I would be led to believe that someone who's been working with it for numerous years is gonna know something about it over the guy who just walked in the door. If they had just hung in there and kept a good relationship until the project was done, then everything would have gone a lot smoother. It's not worth it to sit there butting heads with these people when you still need the information that they have. You're just making your life more difficult. Sounds like this guy just had a little bit of a superiority complex and wanted to flex in front of these guys that he saw as lower web designers. Either way, joke's on him in the end. You don't know how to do everything, buddy, and sometimes you need to accept that. My wife couldn't handle the racism coming from her coworkers, so she got everyone fired. This story took place back in the mid-90s. My wife and I were newly married and our daughter was still an infant. My wife worked in healthcare as a home care nurse, traveling from house to house looking after people. However, after our daughter was born, she did not want a job that put her on the road so much and shifts in the evening, so she applied to be a cleaner at the military base near our community. 2 things about our situation that are noteworthy. One is that my wife is a visible minority, and second, as a healthcare worker, she logs everything as a force of habit. The company that hired her was a national company. The base office usually had 5 employees. One had recently quit because her husband was moving with his military job to another part of the country, so the local boss hired my wife to replace her. The 4 other workers were tight. Louise was the boss, who hired her best friend Donna, Donna's brother Dan, and Louise's niece Tracy. My wife was a true outsider. She immediately saw things were not quite on the level. Even though my wife was paid from 4 p.m. to midnight, she was home by 8 p.m. every night. She was also excluded from cleaning the buildings that housed the engineering and tenancy offices. Occasionally, when she would clean those offices, she saw her colleagues rifling through desks and filing cabinets, photocopying documents, and other shady stuff. My wife also saw Louise threaten a soldier with extra duties for not opening doors fast enough. Louise's husband was a senior NCO in the unit, but jobs were hard to find at the time, so my wife was willing to accept a little discomfort to her ethics. However, after a few months, the racism started. It started with a nickname, then morphed into slurs and then rumors about her. They started telling racial jokes without trying to hide it. When my wife complained to the 4 of them that she was uncomfortable, she got called weak, and they threatened her employment. My wife told them that she would go to head office, so she called the head office from work. Stuart from HR dressed down my wife over women's talk and told her she needed to thicken her skin and not be so sensitive. My wife countered that she would go to the authorities. Stewart said no laws have been broken, so that she should go to the authorities if she wanted. Good luck. Later that shift, she was fired for attitude. So my wife went to the authorities. Not just the police. She went to the Human Rights Commission and to the military base headquarters. She gave both photocopies of her logs. The Human Rights investigation determined that there was a work environment that tolerated racist behaviors. That garnered an apology and an acknowledgement from Stewart with a smug comment that they will henceforth include a clause about racial sensitivity in their employee paperwork. He even made a comment to my wife that this essentially was nothing. However, behind the scenes, the base had been doing their own investigation. Some of the people whose desks had been rifled in the tenancy buildings had reported that they suspected they had been snooped through. The dates of some of their reports matched my wife's logs on the dates she was there. Louise threatening a soldier was followed up, and it was discovered that Louise's husband had chastised the soldier and arranged for him to do 2 weeks extra duties, a violation of an abuse of authority statute. The contract with the base required 40 hours of service per day. The base pulled the security and key logs showing that work was always done by 8 p.m. The base was paying for 40 hours per day and getting 20 hours of service. There was a clause in the cleaning contract that stated that federal government human rights regulations needed to be followed. The results of the commission's investigation determined that they were in violation. Other bases were contacted to see what was going on with this company, and they found out that others were having similar issues. As a result, the base broke the contract with cause. It was a 5-year contract broken after the second year. Louise, Donna, Dan, and Tracy were suddenly out of work. The next cleaning company came in. All personnel had to undergo vetting for security. All cleaning was done during the day, preventing people from rifling through desks. 40 hours was 40 hours, and cleaners were not authorized to engage soldiers beyond casual "how are you" conversations. My wife went back to healthcare. However, every once in a while, she wonders what that jerk Stewart thinks of women's talk now. Sadly, it's disgusting that stuff like this is even allowed to happen. The fact that she's there hiring all of her friends and family is already a red flag. She shouldn't have the authority to do that. When the entire department is run by people who are really tight like that, you know there's going to be slacking off. This group seems like they took it even a step further with all the shady photocopying and stuff going on. Whatever way you slice it, your employers are not going to be happy about that, especially when you work in a military base. I hooked up with the best man at my friend's wedding and had a heart attack in the process. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. It was my dear friend's wedding this weekend and my first time meeting the best man in person, though we've worked together over Zoom for the last year. We hit it off and ended up dancing and talking most of the night, and when things went down, I went back to his hotel room and yada yada yada. And it was really good. At one point during it, I started having literal heart pains, chest palpitations, dizziness, couldn't breathe. Never happened to me before, and in that moment, I wasn't sure if I was having a panic attack or a heart episode. And then I remembered that I'm on a medication that can cause heart problems. I had 2 EKGs back in August to monitor it, and everything was fine. I had forgotten about it, and I realized I hadn't done anything as cardio intense as sleeping with another person since before I started the meds. He was absolutely lovely and rubbed my back, calmed me down, and talked through what was happening. Couldn't sleep for hours, but it finally died down and we got some semi-rest. We're both zombies in the morning saying goodbye to everyone, and I make an appointment to see my doctor for another EKG stat. Well, that EKG was today, and after explaining the situation to the nurse and getting the test done, the doctor comes in with 4 medical students in tow. Hear you had a cardiac episode during intercourse. Tell me about that. Kill me now. I'm so glad I was wearing a mask, because I'm sure I was bright red with embarrassment. I'm sure the medical students were glad for their masks too. I don't know how anyone could keep a straight face. After I melted into the floor and died, they told me the EKG was normal, but I needed to see a cardiologist ASAP. So I have to take off work to tell this story to another doctor tomorrow, and probably get stress test until I'm cleared to do cardio again, which I hope is soon, because he's coming to visit next week. Come on, Doc. You know she's gonna be embarrassed. Show a little discretion. You're really gonna bring 4 med students in tow for this one? You could have done it for anyone else, I'm sure. Regardless, hey, I'm glad you're okay and that you had fun. But maybe just try and take it easy for a bit, at least until you're back to 100%. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe. My friend threw me out of her party for kissing my husband. I, 37-year-old female, and my husband, 42-year-old male, attended my friend Becky, 36-year-old female's annual barbecue last weekend. Becky and I have been close friends since college. I met my husband shortly after graduating, and while him and Becky have never been close, such as hanging out without me, they have always been friendly toward one another, and we've all hung out together on numerous occasions. Becky recently lost her husband due to a medical issue, and we've all been devastated. This year, Becky texted me the day before her event and told me that she was making this year's occasion a child-free one, and that meant I couldn't bring my 3-year-old and that she understood if I couldn't make it. I bit my tongue in an effort to be respectful and thanked her for letting me know, and told her I indeed wouldn't be able to make it. She responded by saying she was looking forward to seeing my husband at dinner though. I saw no issue with this and sent her a thumbs up. The next morning was the day of Becky's event, and my mother-in-law luckily agreed to babysit our toddler. We thanked mother-in-law and headed over to Becky's with food, gifts, and no children in tow. As we walked in, Becky greeted my husband with a hug and an excited hello, and then me with a sort of surprised look on her face. She didn't say much to me and went into her living room with everyone else. I went to put down the food on the counter while she introduced everybody to my husband and referred to him as dear. My husband told me this later on in the evening. I walked into the room and she gave me no mind as she was deep in conversation with a friend of hers. Sometime into the party, Becky and my husband were both standing at the patio door, and she had her arm around his waist. He spotted and looked at me with a help me glare, so I made my way over thinking she had one too many. I gave him a kiss as he separated from her grasp. Becky looked at both of us and then back at the others at the party with a shocked expression, and then ran back into the house crying. She ran into the bedroom and locked the door and screamed at me to leave through the door. I tried asking her what had upset her and why she wanted us to leave numerous times. She refused to answer me and just kept crying. So we left and on the way out received some pretty dirty looks from the other partygoers. Later, I received texts from several mutual friends who scolded me for PDA and how Becky was so upset that I made her party look tacky, and that I was rubbing it in her face that she was a widow. I was so shocked and hurt to hear this, and mentioned that every other couple at the event was also being relatively affectionate, and that despite my husband and I not being ones to commit PDA in public, I had just given him a side hug and a peck kiss. That was all. Anyways, I'm at a loss at what I should do. I feel like I hurt a close friend, but I'm not sure how and what I can do to fix it. Reddit, help! Am I the jerk? This is a really awkward situation to be in. It does kind of sound like your friend was hitting on your husband, and I don't know why she would be surprised for you to be there when you're the ones that have always been close. But yeah, maybe she just had a couple too many and wasn't thinking straight. Either way, I don't think you're really obligated to make any kind of apology here. I just think a conversation needs to happen about, well, what the heck happened? If your friend's feeling a certain way, and that's totally understandable given her circumstance, that's fine, but not towards your husband. If that's really how she feels about him, I don't know what she expects you to do. It's not like you're just gonna step aside. I showed my husband the rude text his mother had sent me, and he ended up putting her in the hospital. To start, me and my mother-in-law have never gotten along. She hates my guts and can be overly sensitive at times. I tried not to give her the wrong impression about me, but we just don't like each other. Sunday, I was feeling sick. I'm a new mom, by the way, and couldn't eat what she'd cooked for dinner, and she seemed to take it personal. She sent me a private message of what seemed to be her final straw with my behavior, and it stated the following, copy and paste. "Oh yes, I know and feel your passive-aggressive vibe. You keep pretending to be sick so you won't have to eat what I cook. What? You think my cooking is disgusting? You think I'm unhygienic? When was the last time you actually looked at yourself in the mirror? Apologies. I forgot you're a new mom and can't even be bothered to brush your hair. You finally trapped our son and now want to use the baby as a pawn. I don't like the fact that you're my grandchild's mother. I don't think I'll ever come to terms with it because you bore him, but I'll pretend. Pretend I don't know my son's been having chats with his ex every chance he gets. Be mean to his mommy, me, and see how far that gets you. Oh, and when I watch your hellhound of a dog, it stays chained to a garage day and night until a half hour before you arrive. It stinks up my house, you know. Same with your hair and clothes. My mind was blown, and my gut reaction was to immediately go to my husband and show him what his mom had sent. And he didn't take it well. He tried calling her, but she didn't respond. It was 11 p.m., and he decided to drive to his parents' house and pick a fight with her about the text. According to my sister-in-law number 1, who witnessed it, he yelled at his mother and berated her and called her names, then disowned her, which shocked everyone in the house. My mother-in-law is diabetic. She fainted on the spot, and my husband didn't stop. He just walked out of there while his family were yelling at him. I got several calls and texts from them claiming I just caused irreparable damage in my husband's relationship with his mother, jeopardized her health because she was taken to the hospital, worst of all, making my husband disown her over what? A dinner that I could have gotten a few bites of? A simple misunderstanding? They accused me of causing this chaos and turning my husband on his own mother and disowning her like that. Sister-in-law number 3 berated me for sharing the text with my husband, saying I should have confronted my mother-in-law alone instead of escalating the situation. She said I'm responsible for whatever happens next and have to fix the problem I created. I feel awful overall and so guilty since she's at the hospital and the family are feeling tense. My husband is avoiding me. Am I the jerk? Honestly, I don't think you did anything wrong here. It's a perfectly natural reaction to immediately want to show your husband what's going on. That's a hard thing to wrap your head around what she just said. It's a lot to take in. The level of disrespect in that text was astronomical. How your husband chooses to deal with it is entirely up to him at that point. It's unfortunate that it escalated to this situation, but I don't think you're the one to blame here. If anything, she's responsible for this herself. She brought this on herself. No way she would have ever said any of that stuff directly in front of your husband. And honestly, at that point, he has a right to know how she's treating you. I really hope that she's doing better and that everything's okay now. But just because you had a heart attack doesn't mean you won the argument. Grocery store Karen seems to think my husband works there, despite the fact that he's wearing a winter coat and carrying a 6-month-old. My husband is a peaceful giant. He's 6'5" and can look quite imposing, even though he really is a teddy bear. Never stressed or aggressive, never overreacting or raising his voice, just a peaceful giant. So here we are at the grocery shop with our 6-month-old baby shopping for food and whatnot. It's winter in Canada, so, you know, cold. And we're both wearing our coats. The kid is fussy and nothing really calms him except when we carry him in our arms. It's my turn and my husband is going back and forth gathering what we need and bringing the items to our cart, when this banshee from Hades got in his face and started yelling at him. Are you done? You've been helping her forever. I need help now. I'm so sorry, but I'm afraid I don't work here. Bull! I saw you helping her shop. Now you need to help me, and you do not talk back to me. But stop! Don't talk to me unless it's to thank me. Are we clear? My husband sees me boiling and about to interfere, but makes a sign that says he's gonna deal with it. He then calmly looks at her with a smile. Good, now grab me the last one of those, up on the high shelf. Why the heck you people always put the stuff I need so high is beyond me. Now chop chop. My husband grabs the item, but instead of giving it to her, he keeps it just a tiny bit out of her reach. He looks at it and then at me. Honey, we needed this, right? It's at this moment that I catch on to what he's doing. Well, as a matter of fact, yes, we do. What? How dare you give her my stuff? It's my stuff! Give it to me! Super slowly, my husband gets closer to the lady. He's so imposing that she calms down immediately. With the biggest of smiles and the most polite voice ever, he says to her, "Again, I don't work here. but thank you for showing me this. We were about to forget it." And with that, he puts the item in our cart, grabs the baby, and together we left. In the background, the lady's howling some profanities. All three of us are smiling. I love my husband. People need to learn to pick up on what should be obvious cues. The fact that your husband's dressed for the winter and is only helping you when you have a baby with you would make you believe that most people would understand that you two are together. Apparently, this went right over this lady's head. Some people's observation skills can be lacking, to say the least. Thankfully, this situation was handled without anything really getting escalated. Company owner says employees are replaceable, so now he has to replace everybody. So about 2 years ago, I was working as an assistant manager at a small business, about 20 to 25 employees overall. I had been there for about 5.5 years, 3 as an entry-level position, and then as the business grew, the manager was getting overwhelmed. So they created the assistant manager position and put me in it. Now, I was their jack of all trades, covering multiple positions in the business when needed. Built and maintained a new website, the old one had not been updated in several years, served as the entire IT department, got a new phone system installed along with replacing another major critical piece of equipment, DIY minor building updates, inventory management, distributor relationships, and more. Well, owner number 1 was fed up with owner number 2's BS. Owner 1 was the responsible one and the one that knew what was going on. Owner number 2 was just along for the ride. It reached the point where owner number 1 said either sell me your half or buy my half. Well, owner number 2 ended up choosing to stay. A few staff left, including the manager, while the rest of us braced for the disaster that was coming while we decided what to do. As assistant manager, the staff had brought some concerns about quality and staff safety to me, so I brought them to the owner. The response I got was, "I don't care about staff concerns, they're all replaceable anyways." I was told to tell the staff they should no longer bring their concerns to me, but to the new manager, her hire that had been there 2 weeks and no one trusted yet. Well, I went home that night, shared the entire conversation with most of the staff, and typed up my 2-week notice. The handbook said 4 weeks were required, but I refused to work for her longer than 2 weeks, and turned it in the next morning. So, in addition to losing me and everything I normally did, had also taken over scheduling since we were short-staffed and the new manager didn't know the staff yet and what we needed, another 3 to 4 people quit over the next month, leaving the owner overall with about 50% of the staff that place needed. And even at full staffing, we were barely managing. The website has not been touched since I left. Still has the old owner and other outdated information up. I've gotten multiple questions about where something was or how to do something, because no one else knows how to run certain things. A number of their clients I know have left because things have been getting worse in their product. And overall, I give it a couple of years before she has to sell or close, because I can't imagine it's going to go well. Yet another case of management not acknowledging how valuable an employee really is. Our original poster sounded like they were the superhero of this place. The owner's casual regard towards their employees' jobs is left the employees feeling rather underappreciated. No one's gonna stick around when that's the case. No one's gonna work hard for you if they don't think you give a crap about them. It sounds like it's not going to take that long for this place to crash and burn if that's how she's treating all her employees. It's going to be hard to find replacements that'll stick around. My manager at the grocery store that I work at assigned me to fix a machine that I know nothing about. The machine that takes in the bottles that have a deposit fee on them was broken. The machine couldn't scan the bottles, so the customers wouldn't get their money back. A customer told me about it, so I told my manager. He told me that I should take care of it because he was on break and the customers came to me. I told the customer that I couldn't help her and that she needed to come back some other time when it was fixed. My manager said that handling things in that way was also not acceptable. I started to get a little bit infuriated, so I just decided to go back to the work I was supposed to do. Customers kept on coming to me with the same problem, so I went back to the manager who literally told me, "You're at work. Customers complain to you. It's your problem." I told my coworkers about it. They told me that it's happened before and that a mechanic was required to fix the problem. My manager got angry at me because I told him this. He told me that I needed to find a solution to the problem or I would get fired. I started thinking what I could do to fix it, but I couldn't figure it out, since I work at a grocery store as a 17-year-old who's never fixed something like this. Then my stubborn side took over. I decided to fix the problem my way. I took a broom and punched a hole in the seal that keeps the bottles from falling down. Then I put a big plastic bag on the other side of the machine for the bottles to fall into. My manager lost it and told me I need to find a better way to fix it right now. So I put the plastic bag in his hands and told the 12 customers that were waiting for the machine to work to give their bottles to my manager, and he would take care of it. The manager then sent me home as he was raging and yelling at everyone. The next day I had to work again, and the mechanic was there to fix it. He told me that I had made the situation with the machine worse, but that he had to laugh when he heard the story about my manager. I then heard my manager got fired by his boss for losing his cool, and that I handled the situation very well. To this day, I still wonder what story was told to the boss, but I still have my job, and the manager is long gone. You can't be expected to fix a machine that you have no knowledge about. That's literally a health and safety violation. He can't make you do it. It was the right thing for him to get fired. He's lucky no one got hurt. Honestly, our original poster should have just said no. You have that right. If you feel that your boss is asking you to do something dangerous, you have the right to say no. But let's assume for a second that this machine wasn't particularly dangerous. Either way, it's not your obligation. It's not what you're there to do. You're there to help the customers. At the end of the day, you're not a mechanic. Clearly, the manager couldn't solve the situation either, because he ended up having to call a mechanic himself. I had to teach a leasing agent about her lease, the hard way. I was living in Atlanta around 10 years ago, and I won a 1-year lease at a charity auction. My rent was around $600 a month, prepaid. Market rent was around $1,500 a month, a really good deal. The security deposit was only $150. More on that later. A year is nearly up and I sign a lease at a new place. About a month before I'm ready to move out, the leasing agent for the apartment complex stops me and asks about my renewal. We'd always been cordial to this point, but things were about to get very nasty. Are you renewing for another year? No, I have a lease on a new place. I'm moving out. Well, we require a 2-month notice, so you have to give us a notice in writing. And we're gonna charge you the market month-to-month rate of around $2,000 per month. If you don't live here during that time, it's your fault. Let me read my lease and get back to you. As I'm in real estate, I know how to dig through a lease. I read it and set up a meeting, about a week or two later. Thanks for coming back in. I hope you understand how much trouble you're in and your financial obligations. I've spoken to the corporate office about your situation. They're willing to make the 2-month notice a fine, and only charge you $3,500 since you'll not be living here. Yeah, about that. Per the lease, you're required to give me notice of my new rental rates before the 2-month notice commences. Failure to do so invalidates the 2-month notice. We did that. We left it under your door. I don't know if you did or not. Either way, it clearly states that the notice must be given via certified mail. Return receipt. But hand delivery works just the same. Not according to the lease. I hand her a copy of the lease with the notice section highlighted. Did I sign a receipt stating that I received the notice? I did no such thing. As per this section, all notices must be sent via certified mail. Here's a copy of a tracking number for my notice not to renew. Sent via certified mail. Return receipt requested. It should be received by your office today, if you don't have it already. We got it, but I interrupted her. As my lease is up in 15 days, sometime it expired between the meetings, the 1-month notice puts me half a month into next month, so you can keep my security deposit for those 15 days. My old lease rate is still in effect, as notice was not given of the new rates. This gives you 2 weeks to splash and dash the apartment upon my departure, and have a new tenant in by the 1st of the following month. It does not work like that. Call corporate. I think their attorneys will side with me. Have a good day. I never heard a peep from them after that. No collections, no letters. I stayed my extra 15 days, which helped me with moving to the new place, and taught that jerk leasing agent she really needs to learn more about the product she has control over. Yeah, this really sounds like they were just trying to scam you for a little extra money out the door. That's such a jerk move. You've already got a whole bunch of costs associated with moving. You don't need this thrown on top. Maybe you were a little short on the notice, but either way, they can't expect you to just cough up a couple $1,000s because they say so. If they're gonna turn around and cite the lease agreement, then at least make sure that they're following the lease agreement. Otherwise, it holds no water. My ex-husband refuses to pay child support and lies about being poor, so I'm making sure he stays broke. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. My ex left me for someone else when my kids were young, 5-year-old boy and 2-year-old boy. He paid child support until he was medically released from the military in late 2011. Since then, he hasn't paid a penny. Anytime I've requested help, like $10 for school supplies, he tells me he has no money. He's always begged me not to file through the state and apologized for not paying. Of course, he always promises that he'll start paying at some point. He gets about $2K a month from the VA, but his work history has been spotty, at best. His parents have helped with his bills. He's actually had a good job for the last 2 years now, but still can't help. I've given him all required visitation plus extra. I want my kids to be able to have a relationship with their dad. Recently, he had words with my husband, and my ex said that he doesn't owe anything, morally or legally. He said I should file through the state so they can tell me to my face he doesn't owe. His words. I talked to my kids, now 19 and 16, and got their go-ahead and filed. The state will be pursuing about $70K in back support plus current support for the 16-year-old. I know it's a lot of money, and between him and his current significant other, they have quite a few kids living with them. This will put a huge financial strain on them. So, am I the jerk? You're not a jerk for asking for what you're owed. He's the one who screwed off from the relationship because things got a little tough and he wanted to go have more fun. He needs to understand that he had responsibilities to those kids, and you've been letting him go pretty easily. Besides, he asked you to do it. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below, and don't forget to subscribe. Male Karen seems to think that I work here despite the fact that I have a baby with me. There's a small thrift store for Jesus type store no more than 2 blocks away from my house, and I spend a fair amount of time there. It's cheap, it's close, and babies grow like weeds. I know a couple of ladies that work there. You try taking a baby to a store staffed by mostly grandmas on a regular basis and not get to know them. And I got to know the layout of the store as well. Fast forward to today. I go to the store, say hello to grandma lady on the cash, exchange mindless chit-chat, blah blah blah. There's only like 3 other people in the store. An old guy and what looks like a middle-aged daughter with her elderly mother. Pretty typical. I start shopping and hanging clothes off the stroller bar. Very clearly shopping. Babe leans out of the stroller and pulls some shirts off the rack. So of course I go to put them back on hangers and hang them on the bar and continue shopping. I go over to the toy section and there's the mother and daughter team trying to get a board game off a high shelf. Since I'm much taller than them, I offer to grab it for them, and they accept. I hand it over and they thank me. Pretty run-of-the-mill for me. It's rare I go to a store and not help a short person reach something. I make my way over to the housewares section, and this is where old guy makes his entrance. He walks up to me holding a blender type thing.
Do you guys check to make sure these things work before you sell them?
Don't know, but they have a plug near the cash to test things. And I take my stroller and try to walk away.
How do you not know your own policy?
I should point out that the employees dress however they like, but wear a bright red vest with the shop's name all over it. I'm wearing a coat and pushing a stroller. I'm sorry, sir, I don't work here. Old guy, now very aggressive and a weird purple-red color, cuts me off.
Bullcrap! I just saw you stocking the shelves and making a sale. Don't you lie to me.
I'm sorry, I was just picking up after my baby. I make a gesture to the stroller I'm pushing that has my purchases on it, and I was helping those ladies before.
Oh, I see. You'll help them, but you won't help me, eh? Is it because I'm a man? Get me your manager.
By now, of course, Grandma Lady has noticed what was happening and came walking over.
Sir, we don't allow people to abuse our customers like this. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave if you don't stop. She's not a customer, she's an employee. I saw her.
Sir, she doesn't work here.
Bull crap.
I don't work here, and neither does my son. It's like he hadn't noticed the baby before, despite the giant stroller I've been holding onto this whole time, because he looks down and his face got even more purple and red, and he grumbled, "Bull crap," and walked away. I finished my shopping, checked out, and had a nice giggle about the whole ordeal with Grandma Lady. We've had this conversation before, guys. Use your eyes, take in your surroundings, and make a logical conclusion about the situation. Yeah, she was helping someone. Yeah, she put some stuff back on a shelf. But she has a baby with her. She's probably not working. They were just helping someone get something from the top shelf and cleaning up after the mess their kid had made. You know, like any decent person might do. I'm sure if they had the information to be able to help you, they would have helped you too. But guess what? They don't actually work there. And no one's gonna say they don't work there just because they don't want to help you. What, they're just gonna pick you out of a crowd and say, yeah, everyone else, but not him. A great teacher tries to give their best students a little something special. Of course, Karen has to ruin it. This isn't my story, but it happened to some high school classmates of mine in the late 90s. Unfortunately, I wasn't smart enough to be a part of it. The AP calculus teacher had a tradition that held up for at least a decade, where if you brought your college acceptance letter, you'd be invited to his breakfast club. Essentially, instead of taking the final math exam for the year, he'd provide transportation to the local IHOP, buy everyone breakfast, and just shoot the breeze together. The gesture was a popular and welcome one. After all, these were the brightest kids in the school, the top 10%, including the valedictorian, the captain of the debate team, and others. Taking a final exam when they were already assured their places in Ivy League schools was a pointless formality after all. The year this story happened, however, there was a new teacher who made a big deal about how unfair the breakfast club was. Funnily enough, her name was Karen. The school's vice principal came in and told the class that they would stay in school with everyone else and take the final exam, or else they'd face in-school suspension. The AP calculus teacher had his hands tied. So on the day of the test, a Friday, the whole class came in and took their test, which consisted of a single question. What's your name? The students looked up to a devious grin on the teacher's face, and they quickly caught on. Everyone filled in their papers, submitted them, and then they went off to IHOP. Perfect test scores for everyone. By the time the weekend was over, the whole school knew the story, and Karen must have complained to the vice principal once more, because he came and gave in-school suspension tickets for the entire class. It was truly an odd sight to see the school's geniuses file into the ISS room, only to find their AP calculus teacher, who had volunteered for monitor duties or swapped with the normal monitor or something. He'd brought bagels, cream cheese, white fish spread, and butter for everyone serving suspension that day. Mr. Buckley, you're a legend. Karen, stop being a jerk. Who cares what they do if they've already gotten into the school they want to go to? They've worked really hard for the last 4 years to get to where they are. Let them have one day, Karen. It's a reward for those kids doing really well and working hard. Just because other kids aren't able to perform at the same level as these ones that are being rewarded doesn't mean that they shouldn't be rewarded. It's kind of like a participation trophy. If you're just giving it to everyone, you're taking away from the significance of it. And on the other side, if no one gets it at all, then you're taking it away from the kids who have actually earned it. You're taking away the lesson that if you work hard in life that you'll be rewarded. I think that's a more valuable lesson than some math exam that doesn't matter anyway. I left my jerk boyfriend stranded at a party after he made a joke at my expense, completely embarrassing me. I, 19-year-old female, have been with my boyfriend, 25-year-old male, for about 6 months. We don't live together, but I spend a lot of my time at his place. A week ago or so, I was feeling quite sick. Not wanting to drive home, I spent the night at his place. He woke me up at about 5 a.m. and to my great embarrassment, I had wet the bed. I helped him clean up the best I could. I had a temperature of about 103.8 degrees Fahrenheit, and he took me to the hospital and they kept me overnight. A few days later, when I saw him again, I apologized for what happened. He told me it's all right and that he got me a gift. He pulled out a package of adult diapers and threw them at me. I told him that I didn't think it was very funny and explained that I was embarrassed, but he thought it was hilarious. I decided to let it go and talk about it later. We went to a party that night. Not really a party, just us and 6 other friends. It was about an hour away. I drove since he doesn't have a car. After he had a few beers, he started loudly telling them what had happened, forgetting to mention that I was sick and had a high fever. Just telling the part of me wetting the bed and him buying the diapers. He encouraged my friends to joke about it, and after trying to explain but being talked over or laughed at, I left and went home. My boyfriend is obviously quite upset I left without him. I just didn't want to be stuck in a car with him for over an hour. He sent me several texts since then, most of which are calling me too sensitive and not able to take a joke. Some of my friends agree with him. Am I the jerk? Sounds like your boyfriend is rather immature. It's obviously something that you had no control over, and you were feeling extremely under the weather and had to go to the hospital as a result. No decent boyfriend would do this. You're definitely not the jerk in this scenario. My advice to you is you need an upgrade. Your significant other is supposed to be supportive of you, not this. This is just degrading. He seems to thoroughly be enjoying your embarrassment. That's just not acceptable. My friend's husband cheated, lied, and left her for another woman, so I ruined his life. This happened about 4 years ago, but I recently found out how part of my revenge panned out, which is what prompted me to post this. I've never shared this with anyone before. My mom has been best friends with Eileen since they were both kids, and Eileen has kind of been like an aunt to me. About 5 years ago, Eileen's husband of more than 25 years surprised her by asking for a divorce. Eileen lived about 6 hours away from my mom at the time, and I lived out of state, so I didn't find out how everything went down until a few months after their divorce was finalized. Unfortunately, Eileen's life kind of spiraled out of control after the separation/divorce. She developed depression and a drinking problem, but my mom and some other childhood friends were able to convince her to move back to her hometown, and then they convinced her to go to rehab. I moved back home shortly before Eileen went to rehab, and because my school/work schedule was pretty flexible, I was able to house sit and take care of some stuff while she was in rehab. The first time I visited her in rehab, I got the whole divorce story, and it was bad. Eileen's ex, Jeff, hadn't talked to Eileen about any problems prior to asking for the divorce, so she just assumed he fell out of love with her. But I was immediately skeptical about the things Eileen told me. First, Jeff was an executive at a pharmaceutical company earning mid-6 figures, was fired from his job a year before they split up, and decided to take a break before looking for another job. It was weird to me that Jeff decided to take a break from work, because he'd always been such a workaholic. Eileen hasn't worked in years because of a disability, but she has some property in a trust her parents left her that's let her live a comfortable life without working. Jeff and Eileen lived off money from the trust while he was unemployed. Then, after Jeff said he wanted a divorce, he refused to go to couples therapy or talk about why he wanted the divorce. The only thing he would say was that they had grown apart and that he was sick of being with a woman like Eileen. He said Eileen's mother was right about her. Eileen's mother was a classic narcissist. She bullied Eileen horribly about her attractiveness, weight, intelligence, everything, which caused a lot of psychological problems that Jeff knows about. Finally, right after the divorce was finalized, Jeff moved out of state, but to a state he didn't have any family or connections in. Jeff's parents are still alive and in their 80s or 90s, and Jeff is pretty close to them. So it didn't make any sense to me why Jeff wouldn't move to be closer to them if he wanted to move after the divorce. I didn't say anything to Eileen because I didn't want to upset her, but I thought Jeff might be having an affair, had orchestrated his unemployment to avoid paying alimony, and then moved out of state to be with his mistress. I just didn't have a way to confirm it at the time. Then Eileen asked me to look for a box of Jeff's stuff he'd asked her to hold for him until he moved into his new apartment. She told me all the info on the box, contents, and his new address was in an email he sent her. She gave me the password to her computer so I could access the email. This is where I lucked out. It turns out Jeff had used her computer to set up his email on the computer. I accidentally clicked on the app for his email while I was searching for Eileen's email. I decided to take a peek at his email. The first thing I noticed was that he had mostly stopped using that email address 3 years before, which was about 1 year before he was fired. In a folder for digital receipts, I found a confirmation email for a dating site, which I think he saved there accidentally. I also found a verification email for a new email address. I started to put together a speculative timeline of what happened. I guessed that about 3 years before, Jeff started an affair, and shortly after, he decided to get a new email address to help keep the affair secret. I wanted to access his dating profile to get more information, so I tried to use the forgot password feature to see if I could generate an email that would allow me to reset the password and log in that way. Unfortunately, the dating site didn't recognize Jeff's old email address. I thought I might be able to get into Jeff's new email using his old email to reset the password, and then maybe I could use the new email to get into the dating website. But I didn't want to risk locking Jeff out of his new email and alerting him until I knew more about what he'd done. And here's where I totally lucked out. The email app Jeff downloaded to Eileen's MacBook had a note feature, and super genius Jeff saved some passwords on notes. Most of the passwords weren't helpful, but I did get the password to the dating site and his Twitter and Netflix accounts. I logged into the dating site using his new email address and the password. I was able to read messages Jeff sent to another woman before he broke up with Eileen. The new mistress sent Jeff her email address in one of the messages. I searched Facebook for the mistress's email address and found her profile. I couldn't read the mistress's posts, but she left her photos public. She had recent photos of her and Jeff, so I knew they were still together. She also posted a photo of a construction crew breaking ground on a new home for her and Jeff, which was interesting because I got the impression from Eileen that Jeff didn't have a lot of money after the divorce. Here's where my background is important. At the time, I was attending law school. I moved back to my hometown for 1 semester for a legal residency, and I had access to Lexis's database, specifically their public records database. I had spent a good portion of one of my summer internships tracking down property records and other assets to help recover judgments for clients, so I knew how to search for public records. The mistress had purchased several acres in a wealthy suburb several months before Jeff filed for divorce, and there was no mortgage listed on the record. I already found the mistress's LinkedIn page, so I knew she worked as an executive assistant before she moved out of state with Jeff. She didn't advertise her salary, but I doubted she could have afforded the property with her salary alone. It's possible she had money outside her salary, but I suspected Jeff gave her money to purchase the land before he filed for divorce. I also found an updated record on Lexis showing Jeff and the mistress as joint owners of the property. I called the county record office to confirm ownership of the property, dates, etc. The mistress had filed a quitclaim just 5 weeks after Jeff's divorce was finalized. I was still hesitant to try and log into Jeff's new email, so I decided to check his old email again to see if there was anything else I should investigate before moving to the new email. I didn't find anything, but I noticed that several passwords in his notes were the same. I decided to log into his new email using the same password he used for the dating site. I figured the two accounts were created around the same time, so if he had recycled a password, that was the most likely candidate. It worked. His new email was a goldmine. Because this story is already getting ridiculously long, I'll list some of the relevant stuff I found. Jeff hadn't been fired from his old job. He quit and lied to Eileen. I found an email from his admin asking where to have payroll send his last check, and details about a goodbye party for him. Some emails between Jeff and a boat repair person mentioning a leak somewhere on one side of the sailboat near the engine compartment. The repair guy couldn't find the source of the leak, but talked about current and future problems with mold in the engine on that side. Emails between Jeff and a boat broker, which included the email address of buyers farther down in the string. An emailed report from the boat inspector, which didn't include the leak or any mold damage or potential damage to the engine. Emails between Jeff and his contractor about changes made to the new house's sunroom. Something about a 3-season sunroom versus a 4-season sunroom, and the construction needing to be modified to deal with the weight of snow. Emails between Jeff and the mistress, they had married, the mistress and Jeff's shared calendar, some flirty emails between Jeff and another woman, and emails with info on Jeff's new employer. I downloaded all the important emails and their attachments, and started thinking about a revenge plan. To my mind, everything was fair game. He lied about being fired, so I wanted him fired from his new job. I suspected he hid money before his separation from Eileen to help pay for his new house, so I wanted him to lose the house. He cheated, so I wanted to destroy his new relationship. Anything I could do about the boat was also a bonus. The easiest place to start was the boat. I had no idea if the source of the leak was found and repaired or if the leak was verbally disclosed to the buyer, but I figured that Jeff was a lying jerk, so odds were fair he hid the info from the new buyer. I searched Jeff's county's court website 5 to 6 months later and found out the buyers filed a suit against Jeff and the broker and inspector. Ha! I couldn't figure out how to take or destroy Jeff's house, so I settled for contacting the county inspector's office to complain about the sunroom not being up to code. This is actually what prompted me to write this post, because I just found out some of the details about what happened with the county inspectors. Keep in mind, I heard about this from a third party years after the fact, so I don't know all the details. It turns out the sunroom was code compliant, but the inspector did find a workshop/workroom attached to the detached garage that wasn't on the original permit or plans. The workshop had a bathroom that the contractor attached to the property's septic system after the initial inspection. A mutual friend of Eileen and Jeff told Eileen and me, and he guessed this was a big deal because the size of the septic system they installed wasn't sized to handle the additional input. But I don't know for sure. Jeff had to pay a fine and the workshop had to be removed. This ended up causing construction delays, which will be important later. As for destroying Jeff's marriage, my first impulse was to send the new wife the flirty emails between Jeff and the other woman. But when I searched for that woman on social media, I couldn't find anything. I had no way of knowing if the new wife knew the other woman, and would think that the emails weren't important or evidence of an affair. Then I played around with the idea of updating Jeff's dating profile and sending stuff to his wife, but it would take too long to manufacture a fake relationship with real dates and times, and I was worried that Jeff might get an email alert from the dating site that would clue him in. I ended up just risking that the new wife wouldn't know the other woman. I pretended to be someone concerned about an affair between Jeff and the new woman. Overall, I kept the accusation vague, but I did say Jeff and the new girl went out to eat and to the movies on a few dates. Jeff's shared calendar said the new wife was out of town. I couldn't come up with a way to get Jeff fired. I rechecked his email and calendar over several weeks looking for something I could use to get him fired. Eventually, my legal residency got too busy to devote much time to revenge, so I decided to just let it go. Eileen recently reconnected with a friend she shared with Jeff, and that friend gave Eileen an update on Jeff. Eileen shared the details with me, and that's what reminded me of what I did and prompted this story. It turned out that I didn't need to worry about sabotaging Jeff's career. By luck, the woman Jeff had been emailing was actually his assistant at his new job, and Jeff's new boss was his brother-in-law. Jeff and his new wife actually moved to her hometown so she could be close to her family, and so Jeff could go to work for his new brother-in-law. I have no idea if Jeff was actually cheating. He told the mutual friend that passed this story on to Eileen that they hadn't been having an affair. It didn't matter to new wife though, because she and Jeff got together when Jeff was already married. She didn't have a lot of trust for Jeff. She didn't believe Jeff's denials when I sent the email about him having an affair. She filed for divorce, and Jeff's brother-in-law boss fired him. And since the construction was delayed, the new house wasn't finished when Jeff and new wife divorced. They had to sell an unfinished home, and Jeff took a big financial hit. Finally, these weren't part of my larger revenge plan, but I am pretty petty. So I took the box of Jeff's stuff, mostly photographs, and threw them away. I told Eileen they must have been lost in the move. I signed both of Jeff's email addresses up for a bunch of spam, newsletters, and mailing lists. I also deleted his Netflix watch list. I also posted, retweeted, and liked a bunch of adult content on his Twitter account and deleted all the accounts he was following. I never told Eileen what I did because I wanted her to have plausible deniability and I didn't want to interfere with her recovery. She doesn't know about the boat lawsuit or the Netflix and Twitter stuff, but she did take satisfaction from his divorce and job loss. I probably would have let it all go if Jeff had just cheated, because I always really liked Jeff. I always thought he was nice, but I was obviously wrong about him. Nice people don't weaponize childhood abuse to mentally torture their wives. As far as I'm concerned, that jerk deserved everything I did to him. I gotta say, this is probably the most thorough level of snooping and revenge that we've seen so far. Our poster was willing to go to any length to make sure that this guy got what was coming to him. To play devil's advocate though, we don't know what was going on behind closed doors. But if he really wasn't happy in that relationship, this wasn't the way to go about it. It really does sound like he was just trying to sneak away without any consequences. Well, it looks like things caught up to him. He probably thought he was about to start his great new life, and it all came crashing down around him. I do feel like this was a massive invasion of privacy though, and if this ever got out, our original poster could probably get into some trouble for what they did. Was it justified though? I'll leave that for you guys to decide. Karen refuses to move her stroller from emergency road and threatens to fire me. So my boss makes her look stupid. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. So first, backstory. I work for a company that does LARP-based events, birthday parties mostly, but also quite a few company trips and other general weird events. And every year we attend several medieval fairs, as they provide excellent advertisement for the company and are a lot of fun for us crew. So my job at this medieval fair was to coordinate our archery with foam arrows and hammer and rock throwing, which was located right beside one of the 3 taverns on the market. Now, there being a tavern meant there also had to be several emergency roads, one of which leads right between my area and that of another activity of ours. So, to the story. I was standing there teaching some kids how to use a bow and arrow, all well and good, with the emergency road being fairly packed. But that's no biggie, since should there be an emergency, the people can get moved really quite quickly. We're just not allowed to block it with anything. As the kid finishes his turn having an absolute blast shooting arrows, I look over and notice someone from the tavern tent come walking towards me. Quite naturally, I walk towards him and apologize to the next in line that they'll have to wait a moment. The guy looks displeased, to say the least, and I immediately get ready for an earful. But fortunately, it wasn't my fault. He had just spoken with the safety team and the fire road was too blocked. So I turn to look and I see the problem. The road was fairly busy, but in the middle of it all, I see a woman sitting in a camping chair with a baby stroller next to her. And based on her haircut, facial expression, and style of clothing, I began to see a massive sign above her head with the name Karen written on it. Because Lord Almighty, she looked like one. Now, with the way my area and the one next to me was made, we have a dead zone in between us. An area that can't really be used for anything and is just kinda there. So me being the smarty boy that I am, I think to myself, if I move Karen over there into the dead zone, problem solved. So I go over to her and of course start off with, "Excuse me, ma'am. What? Shouldn't you be doing your job and get this line done with?" "Well, yes, I should, but first I need you to move your stroller over there." "Why? I'm sitting perfectly fine here and I want to watch my boy when he shoots." "Ma'am, you'll be perfectly capable of watching him over there." "And why do I have to move?" "Because, ma'am, this is an emergency road and your chair and stroller is in the way." "But there isn't an emergency now, is there?" "No, but that doesn't matter, ma'am. The road is in case there is one." "You listen here. You just do your job or I'll report you for harassment and get you fired. I know the man who runs this show." She didn't clarify whether she meant just our little area, where I happen to be on very good terms with my boss, or the whole market, where I also happen to be on good terms with the people on top. "Ma'am, I don't really care who you know. I've gotten word from the safety team that strollers, chairs, and such aren't allowed in the emergency roads." This kind of talk followed for quite a while, with her creating quite a scene, mentioning numerous times that she knew the boss/showrunner/director. She used a lot of different names for him. Now, what I didn't know was that one of the other crew had gotten hold of the big man himself and asked him to come down. So after maybe 10 minutes of very fruitless conversation, he arrives and takes over for me, trying to explain to this lady that she has to move. She gets very aggressive with the change in person, and threatens the big man himself with getting fired. Now, I'd like to think I'm usually pretty good at keeping my cool, but I lost it. I begin laughing like a lunatic, and the few around me who overheard it and know who the big man is also began laughing, which only made Karen even more frantic, as she began screaming, "Shut up, all of you! I know the man who runs this entire market, and I'm gonna get you all fired!" I almost fall over myself laughing. So the big man himself asks Karen, "So who exactly is it that you know?" And to my surprise, she actually knows the name of the big man and says it straight to his face. So the big man himself confirms that she claims to know him personally, and lo and behold, he just reaches for his ID. And I could see the look on her face when she realized that it was in fact him. She quickly grabbed her son, her chair, her stroller, and stormed off. Not a whole lot more happened, other than a lot of laughs that evening. Ugh, classic Karen situation here. Lady, we're not trying to give you a hard time. Trust me, we don't want to talk to you any more than you want to talk to us. We wouldn't be asking you to move if it weren't necessary. We don't see you across the parking lot and just pick you out that you're going to be our target for the day and we want to make you miserable. No one cares about you that much. Sorry. The one surprising thing about this story though was that she did actually know the name of the big guy. My guess is she had a friend who worked there or something like that and they just threw that name out. So she took that and used it as power. The thing is though, if you actually knew the big man, you wouldn't be making problems where he's trying to run a business. Even if you do know him, that doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want. It's an emergency road. There's a lot of people here. It needs to be available. Get over it, move your crap. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe. Karen tries to steal my chair at my kid's baseball game and then calls the cops on me. I always mention that I live in a small town because those who haven't read my stuff need to grasp that it's a small town. And you do things in a small town you wouldn't necessarily do in a larger one. You also tend to run into a lot of entitled parents, especially if you have anything to do with the school system or young people. I have one of those personalized deluxe folding camp chairs with a drink holder, pop-up table, and umbrella. It's very nice and pretty much lives in my trunk. Normally you would watch a possession like that very carefully in a public place. It's a small town, so it's not generally a big issue. You set it up and wander off to talk with people and stuff like that. Besides, it has my name on it, so that helps. Reserved seating wherever I set it up. I love baseball. It's probably my favorite spectator sport. My nephew was on his high school team and it was a great team. I never missed a home game. On this day, I set up my chair without the umbrella. Then I wandered over to the concession area to get some nachos and a drink. I wandered back and someone is sitting in my chair. I was understandably puzzled. It's my chair. It has my name on it. More importantly, the person sitting in it knows that it's not their chair. This has never happened before. I place my drink on the bleachers and eat a couple of nachos while pondering the situation. After the third or fourth chip, I decide to say something. Excuse me, this is my chair. No one was sitting in it. First come, first served. That's not how that works. I own the chair. Just sit on the bleachers. No, I'm gonna sit in my chair. You're gonna move. No, I'm not. I got here first and I have a child playing baseball today. I deserve this spot. Go away. Lady, this is not the majors. Everyone here has a kid playing. I know the parents of every kid on our team. You're not one of them. It doesn't matter anyway because it's my chair. I'm the mother of a kid on the opposing team. They sit on the other side. Fine. She stands up and proceeds to try and take my chair with her. I snatched it out of her hands. Give me that chair. No, it's mine. I'll call the police. No need. They're already here. I point out several people. That guy and that guy and that guy over there. Their kids were on the team. Jerk! You just figured that out? Pretty slow on the uptake there, princess. She wandered off and I sat down in my chair to enjoy my nachos. A few minutes later, she's back with the only cop actually in uniform. That's my seat. I was sitting there first. Well, hey, original poster, what's up? Crazy people doing crazy things. You? This woman's claiming she was here first and you took her seat. Not possible. It is possible. I was here first and then you came and demanded I move and stole my seat. I own the chair. It doesn't matter. I was here first. I was actually here first. Then I went to get snacks. No, I was here first and I need that spot to watch my son play ball. I had to be the first one here because I own the chair. It didn't arrive before I did. I put it here. Your son plays for the other team and they sit on the other side. If you hadn't been in the wrong place, you couldn't have tried to steal my chair. Now go away. At this point, there are several out-of-uniform cops just milling around watching and trying not to crack up. This woman is getting more and more upset, and I'm just not. They know me and can see I'm playing with her. Ma'am, you need to leave this woman and her chair alone. Please go to the other side and sit on the bleachers. But the chair is nicer and I was here first. Ma'am, she brought the chair and put it here. She does this every game. She owns it and that makes it hers. You need to leave now. You don't want to spoil the game for your son. I'm a single mother. I'm not surprised. How dare you be so rude? Your parents should have taught you some respect. My parents taught me not to steal. They also taught me not to allow some idiot to try and push me around. If you don't leave, I'm gonna press charges for your attempted theft that you've admitted to, and then report you to your school and have you banned from all future away games. Go to the bleachers on the other side and leave me alone. Now! She looked from me to the cop, who nodded, and moved back towards the bleachers on the other side. There was a kid in the opposing dugout who looked decidedly embarrassed. The jerk glared at me all through the game. It was great. I'm not sure who this lady thinks she's fooling. It's obvious the chair isn't yours. You know that, the owner knows that. I don't know why you're trying to play this game. If you wanted a nice chair with a better spot to view the game or something like that, then you should have brought your own. You don't get to just claim one on the side. I get the feeling it was just a really nice chair and she just wanted to sit in it. There's literally nothing else going on here. She just saw it as a more comfortable spot and was gonna cause a fuss until she got her way. Thankfully, that didn't happen. Our original poster handled this really well. Whale of a woman tries to attack my mom in a Walmart parking lot. This is an incident that occurred before I was born, so I know of it only via my parents' retelling. My mom is utterly mortified and hates talking about it, but it seems to be one of my dad's favorite stories about her, so it gets told. Back when my parents were first engaged, they were just out of college, completely broke, and living in a crappy apartment right next to train tracks that kept them up at night. Because they were broke, they found themselves having to cut costs on most things, which meant shopping at places that they may not necessarily be a fan of. My mom hates Walmart. She's hated it ever since she saw a lady walking around with practically her entire butt hanging out back when she was a kid. But this incident just cemented my mom's hatred of the place. It was August and my mom was headed out to make a grocery run. Dad stayed home doing Lord knows what as mom piled into their rattling piece of crap car and headed off to Walmart. It was hot that day, and I mean hot. Summers where I live can get over to 30 degrees Celsius, or about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, easily, plus humidity with no breeze. You end up feeling like a potato in a crock pot, your insides melting as your outsides burn. It's utterly miserable. So my mom heads into the Walmart, happy to be there if only because it's out of the heat, and notices with a pang of sympathy that all the employees are in full-length pants, socks, shoes, and heavy-looking t-shirts. No shorts, no sandals, no thin tank tops. For the cashiers, this wasn't too bad, as the interior of the Walmart was a frigid paradise. But the same could not be said for the poor unfortunate cart wranglers, whose heavy clothes were drenched with sweat as they were forced to cross the asphalt expanses and round up the silver chariots left all on their lonesome. The shopping goes fine. My mom picks up what she needs, pays, and heads back out into the broiling muck of the outdoors. She loads her groceries into her car and puts her cart back where it goes because that's not hard to do. As she's about to get into her car, she sees an absolute whale of a woman dump a whining baby into a rusty car and push her empty cart out into the middle of the lot. Mom has worked retail jobs. Lots and lots of retail jobs. What this lady just did was a jerk move, especially considering the fact that one of those cart docks was literally right next to her vehicle. She could have just leaned her impressive mass about 6 inches to the left and pushed the cart in there. Instead, she shoves it into the middle of the lot, where it'll not only potentially impede cars, but will also have to be retrieved by some poor employee, who will likely be nearly run over trying to get it. Because this is a Walmart parking lot and people drive like jerks. So my mom sighs, walks over, and pushes the cart into the dock, rolling her eyes slightly as she does so. She's heading back to her car when she hears a door slam and a "Hey, you!" She turns around to see this mountain of a woman lumbering towards her, the asphalt shaking as her 5 chins jiggle with every thundering footstep. She comes to a halt directly in front of my mother, her maybe 5'10" mass looming over my 5-foot flat mother, the resulting shadow providing a break from the blazing sun. "Yes?" my mother says, very confused. The lady then launches into a tirade. Mom says she doesn't remember the exact words, but the general idea was this lady thought my mom was being snarky, insulting her somehow by putting her cart back for her. My mom defended herself, saying that she only moved the cart because where it had been was dangerous. To which the woman roars,
"Are you saying I'm setting a bad example for my child?"
gesturing back towards her rust bucket of a car. My mom then notices that all of the windows are rolled up, and she freezes. Like I said, I wasn't born yet, but by this point my mom knew that she did indeed want to be a mother. So, as a prospective mother, she's even more appalled at this woman's actions than an average person might be. "Ma'am," she says, trying to de-escalate the situation, "I'm not implying that you're setting a bad example for your child. I will say, however, that it's incredibly hot today. So even if it's only for a few moments, you really shouldn't leave your kid in a sealed—"
"Are you calling me a bad mother, you little jerk?"
the woman bellows, her hands balling up into fists. Mom glares. She's been in a bad mood most of the day, so she's about done with this lady. "You know what?" my mom says. "Yes, I am calling you a bad mother for leaving your infant in a closed car when it's hotter than heck out here. You'd rather pick a fight over a shopping cart than stop your baby from being boiled alive? That seems like pretty bad parenting to me." The lady gasps, then socks my mother across the face hard enough to snap her head to the side.
"You little C-word,"
she hisses, rearing back for another swing.
"How dare you!"
She doesn't get to finish the sentence, as my mom cuts her off by kicking her in the side of the knee, hard. I can understand why this lady picked a fight with my mom. She was clearly looking to throw down, and as I mentioned, my mother was tiny. She's 5'0", about 21 at the time, though she looked maybe 18, and fairly skinny. This woman was built like a particularly flabby brick wall. My mom should have been an almost ridiculously easy target, but she didn't count on one particular thing. My mom used to be a farmhand. She did a lot of heavy manual labor. She was much stronger than she looked. And being a very small woman who had moved to live near a large crime-ridden city, she had a basic understanding of how to take down someone bigger than her. The whale yells, bending over to grip her knee. My mom takes advantage of the height change to jab her in the throat, effectively knocking the wind out of the woman. Before she can get back up, my mom runs to the lady's car and is relieved to find it still unlocked. She ripped the door open, pulled the kid in his car seat, which was unsecured mind you, out of the car, set him down under the shade of the awning of the cart dock so he wouldn't be directly in the sun, briefly checked to see if he was okay. He was, he'd only been in there about a minute or so, and then promptly made a run for it, as she didn't want to run the risk of having the cops show up. She knew she could claim self-defense as the woman hit her first and did so hard enough to make her nose bleed, but she also knew that throat punches were generally frowned upon, and that she got that jerk's kneecaps pretty good, so she didn't exactly want to test that theory. My dad said she came bursting into the apartment, plastic shopping bags dangling off her arms, blood dripping down her face, eyes wide and wild as she launched into a tirade about what just happened. It took him about 40 minutes to stop laughing, and he's never let her forget it. What a piece of work this woman is. First, there's just the jerk move of leaving the cart in the middle of the lot. Then, when the mother of this story is a good Samaritan and goes ahead and puts it away, she goes and picks a fight with her, essentially saying that she was making her look bad. So if you knew it was the wrong thing to do, why'd you do it? You think getting in someone's face and starting a fight is making you better in this situation? And then there's the case of leaving your kid in the car. Come on, Mothering 101. You don't do that, ever, for any amount of time. Getting this upset at somebody that you think is implying that you're being a bad mother, and then proceeding to be a bad mother, is only proving their point. I hit my jerk neighbor with the old Uno reverse card. One day, I came home from work and someone else's car was parked out front of my house. No big deal, I park outside my neighbor's house. When I wake up the next day and go out to my car to leave for work, there's a note tucked under my windshield. I unfold it and it reads,
"Don't ever park here again or else."
in a font so large it takes up the whole page of paper. I folded it up, placed it in my glove box, and there it sat for nearly a year, until the day he parked out front of my house. I tucked the note he left me on his window and went to bed. The next day, as I was enjoying my morning coffee, I watched his wife go to get in the car and noticed the note. She read it with a puzzled look that quickly turned to rage. I thought she would storm over to ask me about it, but apparently she recognized her husband's handwriting and went to ask him. He had to sheepishly explain to her that he had left it on my car, and she brought him over, tail between his legs, to apologize. We had a beer, he stared at the floor the whole time. It was cool. You know, if this was something that happened all the time, I could understand him maybe being a little upset and coming over to have a conversation about what's going on there. But this was a one-time thing and he just seemed to immediately blow up about it. Just wasn't necessary at all. I don't know if you hung on to that note specifically for this purpose or just happened to have it there. But either way, it ended up coming in handy. Even if your neighbor is a bit of a jerk, at least you know he's got someone keeping him in line. Neighbor complains my free power washing isn't good enough and ends up ruining a 25-year friendship. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. First, the background. My husband and I moved in with his grandparents during COVID when I lost both my jobs and my husband's work contract ended. It worked out well. They're in their 70s, we're in our late 20s, and we jumped in with helping them around the house, picking up groceries since they were high risk, yard work, and long overdue deep cleaning. They let us bring our dog and both our cats. Wonderful, amazing people. While we were looking for jobs, we still helped with bills, and now that we're both working again and looking to buy a house, things are still wonderful amongst us. Now, during lockdown, we ran errands for them and a lot of their friends, mostly neighbors, also seniors and high risk. Never took payment for gas or any extras. We only accepted money for groceries because we couldn't afford 10 families' groceries on our savings. One of these families lived about 15 minutes away and were grandparents' old neighbors of 20 plus years. They'd remained friends throughout the last 7 years or so of not being next door, and often talked on the phone or saw each other. We'll call them Karen and Bob. Karen and Bob seemed pretty normal, always grateful when we drop off groceries, even understanding when the stores were out of certain things or specific brands. Bob doesn't really do or say much. This problem actually started a month ago, when grandparents decided they wanted the driveway and sidewalks pressure washed. Papa showed me how to use it and I fell in love with it. It's nothing fancy, just a basic model pressure washer, but it was so satisfying. It took me 2 days to finish the driveway, and I offered to do it for a lot of neighbors too that I'd met and made friends with when I dropped off groceries. I was only working one job, had a lot of free time, and it made me feel needed. Most of the time, they'd bring me out a snack and drink, and we'd chat when I took a break from the Florida heat. It was great. Enter Karen and Bob. Karen and Bob were scheduled to come over for dinner. I was finishing up a house a few doors down the street when I saw their car coming and waved. I finished up the job and rolled the washer back home. I showered and we were all having dinner when Karen asked why I'd been working down the street. I basically told them I just liked doing it. I thought nothing of it when she remarked that their driveway could use a good washing. I agreed to do it on my days off over the course of a week or two, but I sleep in so I'd get a late morning start. She said that was fine. Next day, 8 a.m., I'm at work when Karen calls.
Where are you?
I'm at work. Is everything okay?
I thought you were gonna wash our driveway.
I am. I'm off in 2 days and I'll get started on it then.
Oh, okay. I guess that's fine.
I hang up, mildly confused. 2 days later at 8 a.m., another call.
Where are you?
In bed. I worked till 2 a.m. last night. My alarm is set for 10. I'll be there by 11.
You said you'd wash the driveway today.
And I will. I'll be there around 11.
Oh, well, I was hoping you'd get started early.
I can do 10, but I'm going back to sleep now.
Fine.
So I get up earlier, eat, and haul the washer up a ramp into the truck and head off to Karen and Bob's house. Now, Karen and Bob have a huge driveway. One of those upside down U half loop ones that's double wide for 2 cars and it's long. I'm there for about 3 hours. hours. It's about 97 degrees outside and climbing, 100% humidity, and I go through my water bottle. So I turn off the washer and knock on the door and ask to fill my water bottle.
You didn't bring water?
I start laughing because it's Florida and I think she's joking. No, I did. It's just really hot out and I'm out. Can I fill it up with some ice water? Karen's visibly irritated.
I guess.
Weird. But I go back out and work another couple hours. I'm probably about a third of the way done when I call it a day. I'm hot. I'm tired, my left hand hurts from clenching the trigger, she's being weird about water, and I'm hungry. So I go and unhook the hose and start loading the washer up when she comes out.
Where you going?
Home. I'll be back in a couple days when I have my next day off.
No, you need to finish.
I'm sorry, what?
You need to finish my driveway.
I will, I just can't finish it today. It'll take me another 10 hours or so to finish. Karen makes a fuss, but I'm adamant that I'm leaving. I need to eat, rehydrate, and the washer's almost out of gas anyway. Keep in mind, I'm not a professional. I'm not a company. I don't have employees or a partner in the business. I don't even have an industrial strength machine. I'm just some bored girl with a small washer that thinks it's fun and doesn't mind helping people. I should have stayed gone. I got a voicemail at work the next day saying how Karen and Bob are both unhappy that their driveway looks half finished. Then the next day, Karen calls and texts me multiple times, which I ignore her other than to say I'm at work, can't talk, and I'll be there tomorrow. My phone starts ringing the next day at 7:30 with,
"Are you coming at 8? Please be here by 8 a.m. Don't forget water."
I call back. Hey Karen, there's a thunderstorm right now that's supposed to last most of the day. If it clears up, I'll come over for a while, but I'm not doing it in thunder and lightning.
You promised you'd come today. The driveway looks awful.
I'm sorry, but it's not safe to be out there with a pressure washer in a thunderstorm.
I expect you to be here tomorrow then, at 8.
I work tomorrow. I can come the day after. Karen then has the bright idea that I call off work because she hired me to do her driveway and I haven't finished it yet. I say no. I'll be there in 2 days. Cue 2 more days of passive-aggressive voicemails and messages. But I show up with a cooler of ice water and food, work another 5 or so hours with her peering through her windows at me anytime I turn the washer off. No friendly chit-chat, no drinks or snacks offered. Not that I expected it, but still. The only talking we did was when I took a break to eat lunch. She opened her door long enough to ask what I was doing and if I could not sit on her porch steps. It was the only shaded place to sit, so I sat on my tailgate in the sun and scarfed down my lunch. I packed up that day with about 4 more hours of washing to do. Again, huge freaking driveway versus tiny little washer. I get home exhausted, and grandparents ask if I have a second to chat after my shower. Apparently, Karen and Bob had called them multiple times saying I was being lazy and just sitting around her house, and she just wanted me to finish her driveway and leave. It wasn't like me to just sit around ever, especially in someone else's home. So they asked what was going on, and I told them about the job I was doing. It took me almost a week to get back over there. I received constant texts and calls about how I was slacking, about how I was a person for saying I'd help poor old people, then leaving them to finish such a laboring task. I finished the driveway in 1 shot, didn't speak a word to Karen, and only spoke to Bob to tell him I was finished and return his garden hose. They never even said thank you. I went home happy to be done. Chalk it up to a lesson learned and just avoid Karen and Bob when they come over. We're moving out soon anyway. Bob and Papa were really good friends and Mimi and Karen were really good friends. Who cares if they didn't like me? Well, remember how I said grandparents are just super amazing people? They cared. They cared a lot that I was giving up my days off, coming home exhausted, being used and lied about. So one day they were going to have lunch at Karen and Bob's house when Karen met them out front and lamented on her driveway being full of brown spots that I had missed, and she demanded they make me come back and fix it, and how I hadn't pressure washed the porch or the steps or the house. They kept going on about how it just looked horrible to have a half-clean driveway and dirty porch and house. Papa knows I pride myself on my work, paid or not. I'm OCD with the washer. That's why I like it so much. So he asked her to see the spots I'd missed and she starts pointing out out brown rocks. Brown rocks in the concrete of her driveway. She really thought that pressure washing the rocks would make them match the concrete, and clearly I was too lazy to do it right. I didn't get the exact words from grandparents, but Karen had a meltdown about my husband and I being leeches on them, which landed them in an argument that ended both friendships, lunch being cancelled, and the end of the story. Or so I thought. This was all a month ago, but I'm writing this now because Karen and Bob have both reached out to me and grandparents. Not to patch things up, or apologize, or even say thank you. They want us to pay them because their water bill went up because I used their water hose to run the pressure washer. The only response they got was a written out receipt from me for my hourly rate, times the number of hours I was there for the driveway and had spent picking up their groceries and running errands, a rental fee for the washer per day, the total of gas I'd spent running the pressure washer, and from the beginning of my grocery and errand runs from them to the last day I was there, with a note at the bottom, "I'll pay up when you do." Why are you gonna look a gift horse in the mouth? You have someone that's willing to put in hours on cleaning your driveway for free, and you're gonna complain? Some people just don't know how to accept a favor. They in no way hired you. You're doing this out of the goodness of your heart. They can't be expecting you to take time off work to come do this, or for such a large project to be done quickly. Like you said, you're one person with a tiny washer, not a professional company. It's gonna take some time, and given how long it took just to do the driveway, do they really want to follow through with the porch and the rest of the house? I know our original poster definitely won't want to, considering they can't go a single day without being harassed by these people. Unfortunately, sometimes when you're being too nice, people take advantage. This was one of those times. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe. Trashy tenants trying to sneakily move out of parents' property in the middle of the night. Some tenants that were on the trashy side had been living at parents' property for a while. After a cash windfall, they decided it was time to move out. Fine, whatever. They start complaining and being late on rent, talking about molds and taking us to court. They never even showed up to court. This elongates the process. So they basically end up living in our house for free while taking us to court for poor living conditions. A few months go by until they have to go to court. One of them shows up crying that their baby is dying because of the mold. The judge goes in on her, saying, "You've been living there rent-free for over 6 months. If your baby is sick, why don't you leave?" And we also had a mold guy come in to inspect the house, and he basically said it's not mold that's giving your kid breathing problems, it's your cigarette smoke. The case gets thrown out, and they gotta pay back a lot of rent. Literally that night, they get a U-Haul and leave town. I followed their every move on Instagram, knowing they were gonna eventually slip up. A few weeks go by and they start posting pics of their new house and such. Eventually they put a location on one of their pics. Bad move, honey. Bless your heart. Got on Google Earth, found the street, found the actual house by matching the red door to one of their pics, and sent it to the lawyer. Those jerks got served, and the guy had to sell his vintage car to pay us back. There are people that will just do this on a loop and just try and rip people off getting months of rent free at a time and then just up and leaving and going to the next place. I really don't know how this is something that they can keep getting away with. Typically you have to do a background or credit check when you're applying for a new place, but somehow they managed to keep pulling this scam off. Luckily for our original poster, they managed to track them down this time, but a lot of the time, the landlord isn't so lucky. Parents insist I tutor their child in person and knowingly expose me to COVID. I'm a tutor. Most of my work has remained virtual even after the pandemic lifts for the sake of clients' convenience. However, some parents preferred to return to in-person. Once I was fully vaccinated, I'm quite a bit older so I was towards the front of the line, I was perfectly happy to return to in-person sessions with those who preferred them. I work with one family who can be a bit prickly regarding public health measures. They wouldn't have their son do virtual sessions with me, certain that he wasn't learning anything, and pressured me quite hard, although unsuccessfully, to return to in-person before a vaccine was available. They're otherwise fine though their son wouldn't need tutoring at all had his parents not rammed him into a gifted program he really isn't suited for. But anyways, the first few sessions back were all fine and good, but then one day I went in and noticed the father of the family had a pretty severe cough. I asked if all was well and he insisted it was fine and I should come in. Even tried to shake my hand with his cough despite all we knew. Well, whatever. I was in a separate room with the son, so I figured it was fine enough. I wouldn't be there all too long. I opened a window, so the kid and I were working away, but I kept hearing this guy really going at it coughing, and I was pretty uncomfortable. I offered virtual sessions for precisely this reason, and I even specifically have clients sign saying they will reschedule if they or their clients are exhibiting signs of illness. I had that even before the pandemic. When my student mentioned his dad had returned from a trip to see a big game about 2 weeks ago, I was done. I excused myself early and made up some bogus excuse about a burst pipe at home. I didn't want to have the confrontation about the real reason in front of the student. I headed back and planned to schedule a call with the parents, since a matter as sensitive as "do this again and our professional relationship is over" didn't seem appropriate for email. The call went about how you'd expect. They were all, "You want to live your life in fear? Go ahead, but we're not paying for the session you walked out on," and so forth. About a week and a half after that initial encounter, a health department worker contacted me to inform me I had been exposed to COVID-19. They couldn't tell me who, but I'm absolutely sure it was this guy. The worst part is to trigger a contact trace in our state, you have to have tested positive. So he knew he had it and exposed me and chose not to call, leaving who knows how many days for me to infect my loved ones and other clients while he just sat around. Thankfully, because I was fully vaccinated, I was spared. If he hadn't felt entitled to in-person sessions while sick, I wouldn't have had the tremendous scare. But I'm just grateful I didn't catch it. I terminated our business relationship in writing, and their response was, "You're discriminating against us for our beliefs. What, our son doesn't deserve an education as much as the scientists? We'll find a better teacher than you for less money," and so on. Much of the email was not spelled or formatted correctly, so that should tell you something about these jerks. Oh, guys, I hate talking about the COVID stuff. I think I've said it before that I was working in retail during the time of COVID, and it was just chaos. The amount of misinformation going around and all that crap, you end up getting people like this. Everyone thinks that they're entitled to their beliefs, and I'm sorry, but that's not always the case. I promise you, it was a serious situation. The whole world was responding that way for a reason. But no, you saw a random YouTube video from a conspiracy theory guy and think that you all of a sudden know everything that we don't. Come on. Regardless of what you believe or not, isn't it better to be safe than sorry? I never understood the mentality. Rental company tried to scam me for an extra day on the car after I returned it the way they told me to. So I refused to give the car back until our issue was settled. I rented a car for 5 weeks while my car was being repaired from a car accident. The rental company had a couple great policies. No cleaning fee, no matter how gross the car was, and unlimited miles. Ideal for me. I live in the country, and going anywhere is a drive. When my car was finally scheduled to be finished on a Monday evening, I called the rental car company on Sunday. I asked about the return details. They said return time would be 5:30 p.m. Monday, but I could just leave it at the shop and leave the keys in the shop's drop box. I said sure, and next night I went, got my car, left the keys in the box. I got in my car and the check engine light is on. Staff says come back tomorrow and we'll fix it. I go home thinking I'll be sitting at the shop all Tuesday because I don't have another ride. Tuesday morning I wake up at 7 a.m. to the car rental company very angry and saying that they can't get into the drop box and the shop doesn't open till 9. I tell them I just did what they said to do. They told me that they would be charging me an extra day. At that, I'm furious. I leave my house later and arrive at the shop at 8:50. Car rental guys aren't there. I sit around and the shop opens. I grab the rental keys and give them my car. Right on time, rental car guy appears. They demand the keys, and I ask if I'm still getting charged for an extra day. One guy's inspecting the car while the other confirms that yes, I am getting charged an extra day. The guy who's inspecting it comes over and says the car looks good. It should be ready to rent out immediately. I had cleaned it the day before because I didn't want to be a jerk. Well, I refused to give him the keys. Since I'm getting charged an extra day, that means it's my car until 5:30 today, right? At that, he gets nervous, says they need the car back. I'll give you the keys now if you don't charge me an extra day. But if I'm charged an extra day, I'm using it. He refuses to bend, so I leave. At this point, I'm petty and angry. So I go straight home. I own a farm, and it's been raining like mad lately. I get to work. By the time 10 a.m. rolls around, the car is covered in mud. Like, this black car looks painted brown. I didn't trash the inside because I'm not that petty. I hop in the car and drive to the rental place. I'm pretty covered in mud at this point. I had put trash bags on the front seat to limit it. I walked into the rental place looking like I fell into a mud pit. The guy who refused to cancel the charge looks horrified. I tell them, this car is great for mudding. I'm gonna go mudding for the rest of the day. Just swinging by to ask where to put the keys at 5:30. I'm all smiles and dripping sweetness. I watch the life leave him. His shoulders slump, and he says if I return the car now, they'll cancel the charge because they need to rent out the car. I give him the keys and take an Uber to the shop where my car is ready. No cleaning fee and no extra day charge. Ha! I mean, I'm kinda with our original poster. If you're charging me for an extra day, I get it for that extra day. You can't just make the charge and then not allow me to have the car. Otherwise, you're charging me for an extra hour or whatever it's gonna be. Honestly, they're just being petty at that point. So a little pettiness in return is perfectly acceptable as far as I'm concerned. You tried to be nice and civil about it. They didn't seem to care about making your life more difficult. So might as well have a little fun in the process.
My evil twin sister demands I reschedule my dream wedding so she can go on vacation. So I ban her from my wedding. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. Alright folks, we're in for a doozy. So here's our cast. We have our good cousin, good husband, good cousin's husband, and entitled cousin. Good cousin's twin sister. We'll also call her evil cousin too. Both work. So this story doesn't involve me too much, but I know quite a lot about entitled cousin's actions and behavior through stories family members and good cousin told me. Ever since we were little kids, my cousin, good cousin, and I have been best buds. We lived only a few miles away from one another, so we would bike to each other's houses, play in our backyards, and play video games. Good cousin comes from an extremely wealthy family. Her dad, my uncle, started a business when he was 20, and it's been super successful, to the point that there are now several large locations across the globe. Even though this family is crazy rich, they live a very modest lifestyle. They live in a small 2-story home on a few acres of land, and a large pond takes up most of it. The one lavish thing they do is that every 2 or 3 years they go on a cruise. Good cousin is one of 3 children. She has an older brother and her identical twin sister, entitled cousin. You may think the good twin evil twin scenario is only seen on the TV screen, but good cousin and entitled cousin are the real world equivalent. Good cousin is kind and generous, while entitled cousin is selfish and entitled. Entitled cousin always had this idea in her head that because her dad was so wealthy, she didn't have to lift a finger in life to get what she wanted. Good things just came to her, good cousin, and their brother, but good cousin had the common sense to know that she can't always rely on daddy's money. Despite getting pretty much everything they wanted growing up, good cousin
cousin and her brother never had entitled attitudes. Their parents are also super nice, so entitled cousin was always the evil standout of the family. Entitled cousin's attitude only got worse as time went on. Eventually, entitled cousin got married and had a kid, a boy. Entitled cousin's husband is just as nasty as she is, so they were kinda made for each other. Entitled cousin always wanted to rub her child in good cousin's face, like she wanted to gloat about having a kid before she did. Good cousin had a history of bad relationships, including those that involved verbal and physical abuse. One time, she came to her sister for advice after her boyfriend beat her. Entitled cousin had the nerve to blame her weight and not using makeup to make herself more attractive. Good cousin was afraid to date anyone after her last relationship disaster, but that changed when she finally met the man of her dreams, Good husband. I met Good husband personally, and he's a giant teddy bear of a guy. He's the perfect guy to help heal Good cousin's old wounds and give her the loving, happy life she deserves. Then, nearly 2 years after they met, Good cousin and Good husband were engaged. The entire family was thrilled that Good cousin finally got the man of her dreams, and her father wanted to throw a boatload of money to her to help pay for a beautiful wedding. For future reference, he did the same thing for entitled cousin when she got married, except entitled cousin was not happy about how extravagant Good cousin's wedding was gonna be. Good cousin wanted to be married at Niagara Falls and invite basically everyone she knew, and her father was gonna pay for pretty much all of it. Entitled cousin was furious. She talked to Good cousin and their father about the wedding, and about how all the money being spent better not interfere with the family's upcoming cruise. Yes, they still went on cruises together every few years, despite the children being grown and having families of their own. Their father said that because of the wedding and how expensive it was gonna be, the family cruise would have to be pushed back another year or two. Entitled cousin practically exploded. She blamed Good cousin for taking the cruise away from her and her precious boy, who was 5 at this point. She said she told her son how they were going on a cruise, and how now he's gonna be so upset because his selfish aunt wanted to get married instead of giving him a happy week in the tropics. Entitled cousin even had the audacity to demand Good cousin reschedule the wedding for next year so they could go on the cruise instead. Good cousin, who's not normally a confrontational person, had it with her sister's attitude and told her if she wanted to go on a cruise, she'd have to pay for it herself. Entitled cousin and her husband were nowhere near as wealthy as their father, and there was no way he was going to reschedule his own daughter's wedding just to give entitled cousin what she wanted. Entitled cousin's ranting went on for weeks, flipping back and forth between blaming her sister for ruining her son's year and begging her father for money to go on a cruise because she and her family deserved it. She drove Good cousin to tears, and she ended up calling me up for advice. My only advice to her was to give entitled cousin, who normally gets everything, nothing. And by nothing, I mean don't invite her to the wedding. Like most sisters would do, Good cousin wanted entitled cousin to be one of her bridesmaids, as she was a bridesmaid at entitled cousin's wedding. Not inviting her would be a major upset for everyone involved, but it just may be the thing to teach entitled cousin a lesson. So she did just that. Good cousin called up her sister and flat out told her if she didn't change her attitude, she didn't want it leaving a sour taste at her wedding. Again, entitled cousin blew up, shouting at Good cousin, calling her all sorts of names, and again blaming her for the cruise being cancelled. Good cousin hung up and decided to not invite her to the wedding. The wedding was amazing, and I ended up being the bridesmaid to take entitled cousin's place. Yes, I was invited to the wedding originally, but Good cousin didn't want me to be a bridesmaid only because she knew I hated dresses and I'd rather wear a suit. But I said I'd wear a dress just for her special day. It's been a few years now, and Good cousin and Good husband have a beautiful little girl and have a baby boy on the way. Entitled cousin is still in their lives and is as nasty as ever, but she doesn't come to her father begging for anything anymore, because after her behavior towards him and Good cousin, he threatened to leave her out of his will if she continued to pester either of them. Maybe now that she's not going to get everything handed to her on a silver platter, she'll change her attitude for the better. Or at least that's what we all wish to happen. But I don't know. Sometimes jerks never change. There's a lot of planning that goes into a wedding. A lot of pieces that have to fall into place on one specific day. To think that the bride and groom are gonna move it just because you want to go on a cruise that you're not even paying for is highly unlikely. This sister sounds like the definition of entitled. She literally has just had everything given to her and expects to be able to go on a vacation that, again, she's not paying for. She's not the one who gets to decide what happens with her father's money. Her father's decided that he's gonna throw his other daughter a nice wedding. That means that other things may need to get put on hold. Like Good Cousin said, if you want to go on a cruise, go right ahead. You're just gonna have to be the one to pay for it for once. Maybe you guys do something else instead for a week. Maybe go somewhere that isn't quite as expensive that you can actually afford within your budget. But don't expect the world to revolve around you, especially when it comes down to someone else's wedding day. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe. My son's stepdad threw our Xbox into the pool. I'm demanding he pay for it. I'm a 46-year-old father of a 16-year-old son, Adam. His mother and I have been separated since he was 6. Adam is always happy to spend time at my place as part of the custody agreement. He hates his stepdad, who's in his 30s, and calls him controlling. He puts strict rules upon Adam and punishes him for long periods of time over small mistakes. He doesn't give him allowance like I do or let his mom give him any money. So Adam started working to be able to buy the stuff he wants. Adam always wanted to buy an Xbox, but couldn't afford the full price. So I told him whatever he saved, I was willing to pay double. And he was able to buy a new Xbox for the first time weeks ago. I got an angry phone call from his stepdad, asking why I bought Adam an Xbox, knowing it's not allowed at his house. First of all, I told him Adam paid for the Xbox with his hard-earned money. And second of all, that's his mom's house, so he can't dictate what is and what is not allowed. He went on about how the Xbox is a distraction tool for Adam from his school and chores, but I assured him Adam is responsible with time and can manage and balance just fine. He suggested I keep the Xbox in my house and Adam can come over and play, but I said that's not up to me. Clearly, I got him ticked, so he warned me about the consequences of seeing Adam playing with that Xbox and ignoring his duties. I hung up immediately. 2 days later, Adam called and was freaking out, saying his stepdad had a rage fit and threw his Xbox in the pool as a punishment for Adam for playing with it instead of mowing the lawn. I was in dismay. I went over to his mom's house to see what was going on, but I didn't find her. I found Adam crying. I confronted his stepdad and he said he had to do this because Adam was being neglectful of his chores, and said this was a result of built-up resentment because of Adam's continuous lack of responsibility. I argued that even if he thought Adam was being irresponsible with his playing time, throwing the Xbox in the pool was unhinged of him because he could have hidden it for all I know. He yelled that he gets to decide what punishment fits, and went on about how he was just trying to help Adam become a responsible young man. I was tired of this, and I told Adam to pack his stuff and go to my place. His stepdad firmly said he won't allow it, and that I was preventing him from performing his duties as a father and an authority figure. But I told him he needed to pay for a new Xbox. He argued that I was delusional to expect him to pay for something he doesn't want in his house in the first place, but I said that was enough, and then left. Adam's mother came and argued with me, saying her husband made a mistake, but I shouldn't have taken Adam out of the house. I asked if she's happy with how his stepdad treated him. She said that's tough love, because he wouldn't have done this if he didn't care. I blatantly said her husband was just being an overbearing, power-tripping control freak, and told her Adam is staying with me and we're expecting a new Xbox. She told the family I was stopping her from seeing Adam. Am I the jerk for trying to defend my son? I definitely agree with our poster here that this guy sounds like he's really just trying to establish control. God forbid anything be against what he says in any way. It sounds like the son is a genuinely good kid who just wants to play some video games once in a while. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Video games are great for a lot of reasons. They really bring out creativity and help with problem-solving skills and things like that. There is a lot of value that can be gained from playing video
video games. But regardless, either way, the kid's entitled to some free time to spend how he wants, especially since he's paid for the Xbox. You're destroying someone else's property. How would you feel if he threw your TV in the pool? Yeah, that's about where he is right now. Except he doesn't have the control or power that you have. So he just feels helpless in his situation. Massive jerk move from stepdad on this one. Karen neighbor complains about my loud music, so I get her car towed. I was showering this morning and like to have music playing on my phone while I shower. The music was playing on my iPhone X on the bathroom counter, not on a speaker or anything. I keep the window open for ventilation. The lady that lives 2 houses away from me was walking her dog and apparently could hear my music. It's coming from an iPhone, so it's really not very loud. I can barely hear it in the shower. Ultimately, she called the police and complained that I was blasting music at 6 a.m. and waking up all the neighbors. First of all, I've lived here for 15 years, and I know all the neighbors. She's lived here for 2 months and has been a total Karen the whole time to all of us. Anyways, her house only has 1 parking spot, but she has 2 cars. There is a spot on my property, but I have a very clear sign that says no parking. Violators will be towed at owner's expense. She's parked here before, and I've let it slide because I don't want to make waves with my neighbors. Well, the police showed up and she showed the police a video she took this morning. An officer and I laughed privately as he told me how ridiculous she was being. Then I noticed her car was in my spot. Her car just got towed away. Serves you right, jerk. Yeah, this is just one of those neighbors that wants to complain about any little thing that they find as a mild inconvenience to their perfect lives. God forbid you should be having a shower and playing some music on your phone, and that the window was open. And yeah, it's coming out of an iPhone. That's not really projecting a whole lot of sound. You're not really disturbing anybody. Unless you really bumping something with some subwoofers, your neighbors aren't gonna notice. And you know what? If they have a window open and happen to hear some noise coming out of your bathroom at 6 o'clock in the morning, then it's kind of obvious you're just getting ready for the day. I don't think there's anything you can really hold against them. You just close the window and go about your day. Trying to escalate things like this is just super petty. Come on, Karen, do something better with your time. My manager says that I need to give 48 hours notice before I take time off so that she doesn't get taken advantage of. Meanwhile, she's been doing nothing but take advantage of me. We've moved several times for my husband's career, so I haven't really had a career of my own, just a series of jobs. Some were great and some were crappy. This happened at one of the crappy places, where I worked as a lowly customer service rep. I was late 40s, very dependable, and my manager Anne called me her ideal employee. Never had any customer complaints, never tardy, sick once in 3 years, submitted many time and money-saving ideas, always worked late when asked. I worked 32 hours a week, Monday through Thursday, so I was typically the one she asked to work late since everyone else was full-time and no overtime was involved if I worked a few extra hours. I was having migraines, and my doctor could see me the next afternoon. I asked Anne if I could leave 2 hours early the next day to go to the doctor. She said work was slow that week and no one else was off, so yes. But since I was giving less than 48 hours notice, it counted as unexcused, and I would get a written warning. I said that I was giving 24 hours notice and were slow and fully staffed, so I just didn't get why there would be a warning. 4 warnings in 6 months and you were terminated. They didn't care if you had a doctor's excuse. Tardies were a warning. Calling in sick, returning late from lunch. It wasn't difficult to get 4 in 6 months. Anne said that it was a matter of her having to shift the schedule around. Supposedly, it was inconsiderate to not plan ahead, and she wanted to set a precedent and not be taken advantage of. I went to the appointment, got the warning, and was ticked off about it, but I decided I would be happy to comply with their petty policy in my own malicious way. I didn't have to wait very long. A couple weeks later, Anne came to me an hour before closing and said she had a stack of orders that had come in via Amazon and they needed to be put in that day. The phones had been busy, so the reps who normally entered orders didn't get to them. Could I stay and put them in? I said I really had no other plans, but I'd been thinking about what she'd said giving 48 hours notice when asking someone to change their schedule, and she was right. It does lead to them taking advantage of you. So I'd be willing to stay late late 2 days from now on, and I no longer would stay late on such short notice. But I didn't know I'd need you until just now. Oh, I totally understand. It's like when I was having migraines and needed to get to the doctor as soon as possible. I think I deserve the same consideration that you deserve. If you give me 48 hours notice, I'm happy to stay. She was speechless. She had to pay someone else overtime to stay. A couple days later, she thought she'd get back at me when she told me that I could not remain part-time and would have to start working Fridays the following week. I calmly told her that the following Thursday would be my last day then. By that afternoon, she'd changed her mind and I could stay on my current schedule. That seems to be something employers and managers don't understand. It's a two-way street. Your employees are literally giving their lives to you. All they're asking is for one tiny inconvenience once in a while. We know it's gonna mess with business. We know it's short notice, but you know what? We come in every single day. We work hard and generate money for you guys. So maybe once in a while, just cut them a little slack. It's a doctor's appointment. Let them take the time they need. Especially if there's not going to be any issues. You're writing them up just for the sake of writing them up. You can make the excuse that it's the procedure or whatever you want to call it, but at the end of the day, you need to be able to make a judgment call. Is it worth belittling your employee like that? Is it worth how you're making them feel? Or do you just understand the situation and let them do what they need to do? My roommate's boyfriend came into my room at 2 a.m. So this happened last night. At 2 a.m., I hear my door open, and it was really dark in my room, so I thought it was my roommate. Well, the person walks straight to my laundry basket and starts shuffling through it, as if looking for something. I sit up and say, "Hey, is everything okay?" No response. The person then proceeds to walk back out of my room and close the door behind them. I get up and open my door to see my roommate's boyfriend staring at himself in the bathroom mirror. I ask again if he's alright, and no response. I just closed and locked my door and got back in bed. This morning, I told my roommate what happened. Her boyfriend had left for the day, and she says she found my towel and my bra in her room this morning. Basically, he was sleepwalking. It creeped the heck out of me. Yeah, that is really creepy, admittedly, but unfortunately, there's nothing he can do about it. He's probably a very nice guy. He's got no control over it. I highly doubt he wants to make you uncomfortable like that. You seem to have a lock on your door, so maybe that's just something you keep in place from now on, knowing that this is a thing. But if you come across him doing his thing, sleepwalking, you gotta just kinda let him do it. Apparently, that's the safest thing. I'm not a doctor, I don't know, but that's what we've always heard, right? You're not supposed to wake someone who's sleepwalking, even if they might feel a little creepy. Maybe there's something you guys can figure out here to help control where he's going when he's sleepwalking. Like I said, you already have your lock on the door, so that's a start. It would just suck if this ends up breaking up a relationship, when it's something that he literally can't do anything about and isn't even aware of. My boss ignores my legal advice, and he ends up costing the company $70,000 in fines. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. Several years ago, I worked as a local delivery driver for a steel processing plant. We would take stock units of plate and structural steel and process them into parts our customers could use. Some processes, such as painting, would go out to a third-party vendor and then come back to us for shipment to the customer. I worked on a set routine: deliver to the paint shop in the morning and bring back the orders painted the day before. While that trailer was being unloaded, I would hook another trailer and deliver finished orders to a customer about 70 miles away from the shop. This delivery had a hard appointment time of 2 p.m., and I could not miss it. When I returned after making that delivery, I would finish the day with short deliveries or pickups as needed and then go home. It was an easy, stress-free job as long as I stuck to the routine and made my appointments on time. Communication between departments was poor though, and it disrupted the entire process. For example, the scheduling department might think a certain production run had been finished and was gone for outside processing, when in reality the production
production department hadn't even started the order yet. I spent a lot of afternoons driving around in an empty truck chasing phantom orders that I knew had never been delivered because some office drone wanted me to check and make sure, or running hot orders out to vendors that were overlooked during my morning trip. Enter my main antagonist, one of the first shift production supervisors. I was constantly butting heads with him because he forever tried to hold up my truck for last-second add-ons. This wouldn't have been a big deal except that they almost always interfered with my 2 p.m. delivery, the one I had to be on time for. I kept explaining that I could do his errands in the morning or afternoons, but he couldn't mess with the middle of my day. He was arrogant and condescending with everyone, but took a special dislike towards me because I wasn't in his chain of command, and wouldn't bend over backwards to accommodate his wants. It didn't help that my direct supervisor was a milquetoast little man that avoided conflict at any cost. I ended up taking a lot of heat from this production supervisor even though he couldn't really punish me for meeting my other work obligations. Things finally came to a head when the supervisor came up to shipping with a large order that needed to go to paint. I was about to leave for my 2 p.m. customer and told him so, but I had room left on the truck. If he wanted to load his parts on, I would deliver them on my way back from my primary delivery. This wasn't good enough for him. These parts were behind schedule and had to get painted immediately. If I delivered them in the afternoon, they wouldn't get painted until the following day, which would put him further behind. To top it off, this order required a special marine-grade paint that had been mistakenly delivered to our company location instead of the paint shop, and it all needed to go ASAP. We began our usual back and forth. I had a delivery appointment, I could do what he wanted, but I couldn't do it on his schedule. After a heated conversation where he devolved into rudeness and name-calling of a nature unbecoming of his position, he said, "Fine, I'll take it myself in the other truck." In addition to the tractor-trailer that I drove, we had a smaller delivery truck on hand for occasional use. He decided to drive it on the down low, loading it up and heading out without telling our shipping department. This would have been a grand idea, but driving either truck requires a commercial driver's license, which this supervisor did not have. I pointed this out to him, to which he replied that he was only going up the road, and that everything would be fine. I pointed out that he didn't have a hazardous materials endorsement to transport the paint. Again, he was just going up the road, and I needed to shut the heck up, write him out directions to the paint shop, and get out of the way, since I was effing useless anyway. So I did just that, and wrote him out a perfect set of turn-by-turn directions. This paint shop was about 30 miles up the road, but I knew, and he didn't, that about 15 miles up the road was a DOT way station that always had at least 2 state troopers inside, and at least one of them was a commercial enforcement officer. The truck this supervisor wanted to drive wasn't equipped with an easy pass transponder that would allow him to bypass the scale, and I knew, given his already demonstrated ignorance, he wouldn't know that he was required to pull in. I figured he would blow right past and that one of those troopers would put down his coffee long enough to chase him down and find out why. To my great delight, that is exactly what happened. The troopers saw him drive past and pulled him over. Then they escorted him back to the way station for a thorough inspection. For those unfamiliar, the transportation industry is highly regulated. Some might say it's over-regulated, but anyone that makes it a career knows it's best to follow the laws or face some serious consequences. The supervisor didn't know any of this and was like a lamb to the slaughter. The DOT inspector ripped him to pieces. Among the biggest infraction, he was cited for no CDL, $2,500 fine up to $10,000 to the company, misdemeanor charges, 90-day suspended driver's license, no hazmat endorsement, no documenting paperwork for the hazmat, no placards identifying the vehicle as carrying hazardous materials, $50,000 fine to the company, and more if it results in illness, injury, or death to another person. As a bonus, when the trooper escorted him back to the way station, the scale master saw him talking on his cell phone. The dude was making a panic call to the company manager. Using a handheld device is also a big no-no. That's another $2,500 and another $10,000 to $11,000 to the company. The truck was put out of service at the way station position until it had the proper bill of landing, hazmat paperwork, and a driver with a valid license. The supervisor wasn't allowed to leave himself until someone came to get him. Needless to say, he lost his job immediately. I suspected that would happen, so I hung around the shipping office after my afternoon delivery. I got to witness his walk of shame as he was escorted out of the building. I was never officially told just how much his fines were, but an educated guess puts it at thousands to him personally, and potentially close to $100,000 to the company. I do know the company tried to sue him in civil court to recoup their losses, although I don't know the outcome. I left to take another job shortly after. I figured that even though I wasn't the one at fault, my role in the fiasco wouldn't be looked upon in kind fashion. The best part though was that after months of watching that jerk swagger around wearing a big hubris cowboy hat, I was the one that got to swat it off his head. Honestly, I'm going to be looking at whoever decided to make this guy a supervisor. He clearly has no idea how this works. Although you did make it pretty clear that you don't work directly for him. Seems like more than anything, he should have just kept his mouth shut. If you don't know how it works, best you just stay out of it. It sounds like you were trying to be reasonable with him, telling him that you would get to it, you just can't get to it right that second, which is totally understandable. And I'm sure he's aware of this hard 2 p.m. delivery you have by now. But whatever gave him the idea that he could go ahead and do it himself is just insane. That's not how things work. You tried to warn him. Maybe not as much as you should have regarding the actual stop, but hey, you tried to warn him that he wasn't ready to do it. It kinda sucks that you felt you had to quit too, cause it sounds like you did your job pretty well. But I'm sure you're kicking it over at the new job no problem. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below, and don't forget to subscribe. Entitled parent seems to think that they can just cut in line at Disneyland. It's time for another entitled parent at Disney. This day I was off, so I went to the park as a guest. Important because I overheard but did not join in. For our cast today, we have cast member, entitled father, and entitled kid who needs a good smack on the butt. So I was sitting nearby a fast pass entrance to a ride when I overheard this. We'd like to ride. How much to use this entrance? What? You don't need to pay for a fast pass entrance. You just need a fast pass. Well, what's that? I couldn't understand how this man doesn't know what a fast pass is. This was towards the end of the paper fast passes. If you go over to those machines and scan your park ticket, it'll give you a return time so you don't have to stand in the main line. Well, we want to ride it now. Entitled kid starts playing with the chains for the quote line. I'm bored, Daddy. Can we go on the ride? Yes, entitled kid. Then he said to the cast member, yes, we will, and we won't be waiting in line or waiting for a return time. Sorry, you can't just cut in line or use the FastPass entrance without a return time. I will not wait in line. Do you know how much I paid to be here? A guest in the main line said, not more than me or my family. The entitled father was furious. Would you like to talk to a manager? Why not? I'll get you fired for not doing what I said. He lowered his voice when he noticed the two Disney security looking at him. Just let us on now. No fast pass, no entrance. The entitled father stormed off without talking to the manager when he noticed that Disney security was now within a few feet of him. Come on, guys, it's a theme park. We all paid to be here. We all know it's expensive, especially Disneyland. And yeah, you're gonna be expected to wait in some lines. If you're not ready to do that, don't go to Disneyland. I don't know what to tell you. It's part of the magical experience. Seriously though, I don't know why people assume that they deserve special treatment over everyone else. We're all here in the same boat. Sorry, you gotta deal with it. Jerk bully steals my artwork and tries to claim that my art is his. Okay folks, before we get started, usual cast overview time. We have me, entitled teen, entitled mom, art friend, and cool teacher. So quick little backstory and side info. This happened Friday last week, and I'm 15. I'm a fledgling artist. I do a lot of sketches and a couple of color attempts, but I'm one of the few artists in my school that openly does art, usually at lunch or once my work is done. Now, story time. It's an average Friday in my school. school. Kids are loud, classes are long, and I'm drawing. I go through my first couple classes like always before I get to my third period. I open my backpack and set my drawing book on my desk before I exit the classroom to use the restroom, not really worrying about anything. When I get back, my book is gone. I look all around, ask a few students I know if they've seen it, but it doesn't turn up. I then go throughout my day without it, attempting to figure out who could have taken it. Eventually it's lunchtime and I notice a group of about 10 kids crowded around something in the quad. Normally I'd walk by without a thought, but I figured if it was something neat, maybe it would brighten my day. When I peer over the shoulder of the student in front of me, I blink once, then realize what's happening. A boy from my math class was showing off my drawings and claimed that they were all his own design. I almost shoved the other students out of my way and stood in front of the boy, who smiled at me like I was there to admire his artwork. Those are mine. What? Those drawings. They're mine. I drew all of them personally. Dude, no you didn't. I drew this Talonflame myself. He gestured to the piece of art my best friend asked me to draw like it was nothing special. The other kids seemed to realize that our conversation was getting tense and began heading to lunch. Go away. Not until you give me my drawings back. He continued to claim he was the real owner for a while, before I realized I had him with a few drawings. Flip to the 10th page. It has my name in pen on it. He did so with a smirk, as he had erased my name from every other page, which faded when he saw my first and last name in black ink on the page with my drawing of a Suicune. I really like Pokemon. He then tried to leave, and I obviously tried to stop him, but lunch then ended, and a teacher told us to get to our separate classes. I was left fuming until the day ended, and when it did, I went to the front office to wait for the boy. About 5 minutes after classes ended and most of the students were leaving, I spotted him. I caught him before he could leave the building. Give me back my drawings. I don't know what you're… Don't play games with me. You have it. You saw my name and I want it back. Give it back now and I'll tell nobody about this. He kept trying to weasel his way out of my grip. I had grabbed his arm before a woman came up to me. Excuse me, what are you doing to my son? Miss, he stole my notebook from me and I want it back. If he gives it back, I'll leave him alone. She looked skeptical before sighing. You're probably misunderstanding. I just got him a new notebook, so maybe it looks just like yours. I gave her a really look before she gestured to her son. Show him your drawing so he knows it's not his. I realized I had him because my name was on one of the drawings. He flipped through the drawings and tried to skip the Suicune before I put my hand on the page to stop him. That's my name. Honey, that's just his artist's name. I literally just stared at her with a look of disbelief. All artists have one. I then pulled out my student ID and showed her my name. See? Spelled perfectly like my name. Capitalization and all. It's just a coincidence, that's all. She also tried to leave, but I wouldn't let go of her son or my book. Miss, tell your son to let go of my book and I'll let the two of you go on your way. It's his book, you brat. Those are his drawings. You're just jealous of his talent. She continued to raise her voice before cool teacher walked over.
Hey, original poster, what's going on here?
Oh, good, a teacher. This boy's trying to steal my son's art book. It has my effing name in it. Both recoiled at my language. Then cool teacher spoke.
All right, calm down. Let's get to the bottom of this. Original poster, why do you think this is your book?
Because it was stolen during math, which I have with this kid. It has my drawings in it and it has my first and last name in it.
Okay, good. Now, why is it your book?
The boy and mother made a jumble of excuses that just ended up confusing cool teacher. He took the book and looked it over without opening it.
It has no name on it.
I forgot to put mine.
I still don't know if I can say it's yours.
He had only seen my book from last year, so I don't blame him. As he began to open it, arms wrapped around me. Art friend hugged me from behind. Hey, art friend. What's happening here? The mother stepped forward. This boy is trying to steal my son's art book. Cool teacher looked up from the first page.
Calm down, miss. They just want to know what's happening.
They have no say in this. They'll probably just say it's his because they know him. Cool teacher looked at art friend, who he knows I often draw with, and had an idea. He flipped to a page with an incomplete drawing and asked art friend,
Have you seen original poster drawing this?
Yeah, he drew it in lit but didn't finish. The woman opened her mouth before art friend turned to the page with my Suicune. He also drew this for me last week. See, there's his name. The boy seemed to be regretting his choices, while the mother seemed ready to explode. Cool teacher remained calm. Mystery solved. Here you go, original poster. He gave me my book and turned to the mother as me and art friend left to go to the library, where we talked until our parents picked us up. I came back today, the next Monday, and thankfully wasn't bothered by the little jerk at all. Well, hey, you know what they say, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Obviously, this kid really liked your drawings if he was willing to steal your book and try and claim that they were his. Regardless, I totally understand why you would get so upset. You're obviously very proud of your work, and I'm sure you have every reason to be. You don't want someone else A, taking it, B, trying to claim that it's theirs. I'm sure you have a lot of drawings in there that you really care about, like the one you did for your friend. Thankfully, you had at least one cool teacher around who had your back, and could use his head to solve a problem. Why the mother of this story would choose to reinforce her son's negative behavior is beyond me, but some people just can't admit that their little angel maybe isn't as perfect as they would be led to believe. God forbid they could ever do anything wrong. Entitled daughter tries to cut through the line and has to pay thousands of dollars as a result. Short background. This happened like 3 years ago, so I don't remember every detail 100%, and this whole story won't have much of actual conversation in it. It just sums everything up. The story happened on a train ride from my hometown, where my family lives, to the city of my own place, where I work, halfway across the country, roughly 350 kilometers or 220 miles. On a Sunday evening, since I was visiting my family over the weekend, and since it had a rather bad connection, I had to switch trains 3 times on every trip, and each trip took about 5 hours in total. My foot was injured/hurt. This is important for later. I can't remember why anymore though. And I was in training at work, therefore I didn't earn that much. Also important later. Now to the details. It was starting to become winter, and as you would expect, the National Train Company was of course taken by surprise by it, as always. So many trains were late or completely cancelled. I started my travel at 6 p.m. to theoretically arrive at roughly 11 p.m. at my desired arrival station. Then winter struck, and my first train got 10 minutes late on a 15-minute ride. This caused me to rush to the next train in pain, because of my foot. As luck would have it, the connecting train either already left or never even came. So I had to wait an hour for the next one. This one also arrived at the stop with a delay of 45 minutes, so I arrived there at about 9:45. The last train to my destination was leaving at roughly 8:30 p.m. that day. There was another at 10:30, but I only would have arrived the next morning at roughly 6 a.m. Since this was a very big train station in a big city, and the fact that the train company was forced to give me compensation for their failure to transport me, I stayed there instead of ending up in some small village station, where I wouldn't be guaranteed to get a hotel or even get away from the train station, since I didn't have much money on me to pay a taxi, and the fact that those small stations usually don't have any personnel or ATMs. So I headed to the information counter where the story unfolded. For our cast, we have me, entitled dad, and train station assistant. There are many more, but they won't be getting named here. So let's go. I come up to the desk and tell the lady my story and my demands per their company's policy/the law. Them paying the night in their contracted hotel near the train station and changing my ticket from tied to certain trains to open, so that I could get to my destination without having to purchase a new ticket. Pretty standard. While I was speaking with the train station assistant, entitled dad and his 2 kids came up behind me. The kids didn't do anything though, and even though there are clear signs and posters all around the info desks that tell people to exercise discretion and wait behind the indicated line, entitled dad comes up crouching right beside me. It annoyed me, but I figured that I would have made a bad matchup against him with my foot if I confronted him. But then he started to slowly scurry towards me and slowly push me out of his way with his body weight and small steps. At that point, I had enough and pushed him away, and the following discussion ensued. Dude, what's wrong with you? Can't you read? The sign clearly states that you should stay there, and pushing me away while I'm still talking is a jerk move. Shut up, I have 2 small kids and you're taking way too long anyway. They're tired and we need to get a hotel room soon. You're young, you can walk to another hotel. No, you shut up. I have exactly the same right to that hotel room as you, and I was here first. So get back in line and learn to behave like a normal adult.
Sir, please step behind the line and stop bothering the passenger. We weren't finished yet.
Shut up! I said we need a room fast. And get out of the way. Screw you, jerk. He kicks my legs away, causing me to fall hard on the granite floor with my elbow, and now completely twisting my injured foot.
Security.
Please be reminded that one security guy, another train assistant, and 2 other passengers were standing right next to us on the second counter during the whole situation, and saw everything. Well, the security guy grabs and fixes Entitled Dad on the ground. Entitled Dad's kids are crying and scared, as to be expected. The 2 train assistants tried to console them and called the police, and the other passengers helped me, as I was in severe pain, and called me an ambulance. The police took statements and identification from everyone and let everyone go, since they had no reason to arrest him immediately. Then the whole after story hit him full force. I had to stay the night and next full day and night in the hospital for checks, and was then let go on crutches. My ankle was sprained, but my elbow was fine. Since I still couldn't walk well enough / was in too much pain to take the train, I had to call a taxi to drive me 200 kilometers or 125 miles to my own place. In hindsight, it would have been better to get back to my family, but well, you're always smarter afterwards. My parents quickly sent me money to pay for it via PayPal after they heard the story and my plans. So I didn't have to go to work for a month, since that job required me to stand and walk all day, and had time to get a lawyer. My parents lent me the money for it, since I could have never afforded the lawyer, and sued the guy in civil court. I didn't try criminal court since it wouldn't have brought any personal gain for me. In the end, the judge granted me damage pay of roughly 400 euros for the pain, and another half for my monthly pay for financial loss, and because the guy behaved like a jerk in court, insulting me and the judge, lying and screaming and things like that. And of course, Entitled Dad had to pay his and my lawyer costs, and the court costs, as is standard. The thing is, I didn't even have a high financial loss, since my employer still had to pay my salary while I couldn't work. I just had to order enough food for the next few weeks, since I couldn't go grocery shopping that well. Entitled Dad felt like this was unfair and appealed. Well, let's just say the next judge upped the damage pay by roughly 100 euros, because Entitled Dad still behaved like a jerk. He didn't try a next round. So, to sum it up, he most likely lost 4 lawsuits, 2 against me, 1 against my health insurance, and 1 against my employer. Had to pay damage of around 500 euros, roughly half my salary for financial loss, another 500 euros, my taxi bill for the ride home, special long-distance taxi so more expensive, plus the driver's ride back into the original city / his operation zone, another 850 euros. My lawyer costs 3,000 euros, court costs also easily a few hundred, his own lawyer, most likely not cheaper than mine, probably all my hospital bills, the crutches, painkillers, etc. My actual salary and all the lawyer and court costs for those lawsuits as well. I said probably for the medical and salary payments because I don't know if they sued, or if everything was paid for by his insurance, which is highly likely, and that just means that his premium has gotten higher. So yeah, I alone got roughly 5,000 euros from that jerk, plus all the rest that he and his insurance had to pay. Really goes to show you that sometimes your actions have long-reaching consequences. This guy was getting impatient about the delays on his train and ended up shoving his way in front of someone else, knocked them over, and ended up costing himself thousands of dollars. Not to mention getting arrested and not making the train that night anyway. All because he didn't want to have to wait another 2 to 3 minutes to be able to talk to the associate. It's kind of ridiculous when you break it down like that. I'm willing to bet if you ask this guy if it was worth it, he'd probably tell you no. Parents, steal my $120 to spend on my autistic sister, ruining my 16th birthday party. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. I, a soon-to-be 16-year-old female, don't get to celebrate my birthday every year because my parents can't afford it. I got myself a summer job months ago and saved money for my sweet 16 birthday, since my parents won't be doing anything for me this year either. My birthday is next week. Yesterday, I discovered that my mom searched my room and took the $120 I had saved and hid under my bed, like she always does. I called her and she said she was keeping it safe and will talk after she gets home since she and my dad and my autistic 14-year-old sister were out. I waited till they got back and my sister started yelling cheerfully, telling me to look at the new sneakers my parents got her. I asked my mom for my money, but she said she spent it on new sneakers for my sister. I was like, what? My dad said my sister saw, liked, and wanted the sneakers, but they didn't have money to buy it. So to stop her from having a meltdown in the middle of the store and refusing to leave the store without them, they ended up buying them for her. I angrily told them that money was saved for my upcoming birthday party. He promised he'll pay me back next month. Then I can have my birthday party and invite friends over. I told him my birthday isn't next month. My friends will laugh if I tell them I postponed it. He replied that I should reconsider who I'm friends with then. He has a short temper, and I obviously pushed him to his limit when I said no and kept asking them to return the sneakers. He loudly said no, and I lost it and said that they're both thieves and I hate them for stealing my money and ruining yet another birthday for me. He yelled at me and said, "No, you're getting on my last nerve, and I ain't gonna take any more of your crap. No more. No birthday party for you. Not next week, not next month, because of what you just said. And you're grounded. Now get the F out of my face and stay gone till I tell you otherwise." Mom just looked at me sternly, approving of his message. I ran upstairs and Dad shouted after me that I was way out of line and need to be taught some manners for calling them thieves to their face. I'm grounded now for calling them that. I didn't get my money back, but I did get called an overprivileged, spoiled brat for having little to no consideration for my sister's struggle, and acting so selfishly and throwing a 3-year-old tantrum over a party that they're no longer allowing me to have because I called them thieves. Am I the jerk? No, you're not a jerk at all. Your parents had no right to take that money. You went ahead and saved that money that you worked hard for so you could enjoy your birthday, since they're never able to really give you a decent one. It's not right for them to just go ahead and take it, and then spend it on your sister because she's gonna throw a tantrum otherwise. If they never have money, then they should be used to this kind of thing, and still not have bought her the sneakers. Instead, they caved, because it wasn't their money they were spending. It didn't have the same value to them that it did to you. You had set it aside for something special. Honestly, it's not your parents that should be talking about respect. They need to be learning some themselves. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe. Some jerk working at the airport tried to steal my personal belongings. So about 2 months ago, I went to Cuba with my mother. It was an all-inclusive trip, so everything was pretty much provided for by Sunwing. Whenever I travel, I like to bring with me this cute 500ml glass water bottle with this rubber pink casing that I got while I was in China. Normally, this bottle wouldn't be an issue. There would be a few odd times when security at the airport would check it to make sure it was empty because it was clearly over the 100ml maximum, but they would all let us go without a hitch. When we were traveling to Cuba, the bottle was checked and given back to us on our way there, but on the way back is a completely different story. There were tons of people flying out of where we were the same day as us, so there were like 200 people waiting to check in at only 3 check-in counters. When we finally checked in, it had been about 2 hours since we got there. We were pretty tired from standing, so we wanted to get through to the gates as fast as we could. So we took the shortest line in security. There were 2 people working at each bag check area. At ours, there was a lady looking through the screen displaying the x-ray and a guy in charge of checking suspicious bags. When we put our bags on the conveyor belt, the lady began gesturing to her partner and pointing at the screen. The guy then proceeded to grab my stuff off the belt on the other side and asked us if it was our stuff, to which we replied yes. He carefully shuffled through the bag, but really just went after the water bottle because that's what I assumed the lady pointed to on the screen. The following dialogue is to my best recollection.
Is this your water bottle?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna confiscate this because it's against the rules to bring this on board.
But it's empty.
Yes, but it's over 100 milliliters and that's against the rules.
I'm confused at this point, but didn't want to make a scene and get kicked out. No, that's for liquids.
No, it's for the size of the bottle, and it's glass.
But we have this bottle and that's also glass. This bottle indicates an 80 milliliter bottle of hot sauce we brought.
That's under the 100 milliliters, so it's allowed.
At this point, I wasn't sure if he didn't know the rules or something, because every time he answered, he sounded very unsure. Can I see where it states that I cannot bring an empty bottle over 100 milliliters with me? He grabs a nearby plaque that labels prohibited items and points to a wine bottle. But that's not allowed because it's alcohol.
No, because it's over 100 milliliter glass bottle.
His tone at this point indicated that his real intentions were that he wanted my water bottle, because he's really just grabbing arguments out of thin air. At this point, I'm just trying to test his nerves. So if I had a 100 milliliter glass bottle of alcohol, I could bring it with me.
No, because it's alcohol.
So it is that, referring to the plaque.
Do you want to take the cover off the bottle before it's sent to be destroyed?
He handed the bottle back to me to remove the casing. Keep in mind, there was some more bantering back and forth, basically saying the same thing over and over again. I was really ticked at this point. I really liked that water bottle, and it was clear that the only reason he was confiscating the bottle was because he or the lady wanted it. So I took the water bottle from his hands. He gave it willingly for me to take the casing off, but since the only problem he seems to suggest it has is the size of the glass, I can take everything else. So I stared into his eyes as I removed the lid from the bottle and handed the rest back to him. His face instantly became red with anger, and he aggressively threw the rest into the disposal bin. I have no use for the cap or the casing, but now that jerk has no use for the bottle, and that's all that matters. You know, I don't travel a lot, but I'd like to hope that this kind of thing doesn't happen all the time. Initially, my comment was going to be that maybe our original poster was overreacting, and that wasn't really the case and they were kind of taking it more personally. But given the guy's reaction when they took the cap away and everything, it does sound like that's what they were trying to do. Are we serious here though? It's a water bottle. You're really going to do something like that? Take someone's water bottle just because you want it? That's such a grimy move. Just go buy your own water bottle. Don't be holding up everyone in line because you want to go through someone's luggage randomly because there's something you might want in there. That just, ugh. My manager said no phones at work, and to give everyone her direct contact information. So everyone started calling her. I work in healthcare where phones are not to be used while on the floor caring for patients and things like that, for privacy and WHS reasons, which is fine and understandable. Most of us have our phones on us or in the break room and don't use them unless on break or away from patient care areas. None of us check our phones while busy, and if they do, we'll always get called out for it by other staff. We were all recently in a meeting where we were told we're no longer allowed to have our phones on us, as it's a distraction and against policy, meaning not to be used unless we're out of the unit or off hospital grounds. A few people piped up and said they had young kids in care where their phone was the direct communication for the carers, or there are issues at home that they needed to have their phone to have quick contact if needed, even if it was left in their handbag and could only be checked on breaks. Not only that, but we have a half-hour unpaid lunch break where we should be able to use our phones as we see fit. But this was also denied, as it's still in a healthcare setting and could cause WHS issues. Now, I know working in healthcare and personal mobile phones don't mix, as it really is against policy. However, the issue with denying us complete access was a total overreaction. The issues with requiring quick and direct contact with home or other outside work contacts was brushed off, and we were told if the issues were that bad at home, we shouldn't be at work. Many people were a bit taken aback by this, saying a lot of the time home issues are resolved by a quick text back, and not allowing us to access our phones while at work was a bit unreasonable. Our manager said that if that's the case, we can give people her direct work number and for contact to go through her, and she'll relay the message to us or give the phone to us to talk to whoever's calling. So you know what happened next. We all gave our home, spouses, carers, schools, etc. the direct work line to call for for any reason if they're unable to get in contact with us directly. And the phone started ringing continuously. First was a lady whose husband needed approval for a big financial decision at home. The next was a vet calling to tell a coworker their dog needed to be put down. I got a call from my children's daycare saying my son had been bitten and was bleeding. Mandatory reporting policy. There were several other phone calls within the span of a few hours, with my manager running to find us to relay messages or pull us off the floor so we could speak to the callers, wasting way more time than if we were allowed to shoot a quick text or take a quick phone call while on our breaks. The next day, we were told we can have access to our phones while on break, and to please tell our home contacts to stop calling the manager's phone. It took a few days for everyone to get the message, meaning there were still many unnecessary calls coming through, but it made it obvious that the need for communication lines to be open at home was important. I really don't know what to say to this one. I think it's pretty obvious what the result was going to be. People need to have some kind of contact with the outside world. You can't just cut them off. It sounds like for the most part, everyone was being very responsible with their phone usage while at work. This was just a step too far, completely unnecessary. And of course, when a stupid manager puts a stupid policy in place, stupidity ensues. Again, anyone else could have saw this coming a mile away, but a manager with a manager attitude needing to up the efficiency just seems to be blind to the fact that people actually have lives. God forbid you need to text your kid for 5 seconds. My downstairs neighbor will not stop calling the police on us for making too much noise. Our rental contract, as is normal here, stipulates a quiet period between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. every night, where we're not supposed to be loud. We moved in on a Saturday, and we're of course unpacking on Sunday. So our new neighbor below us knocked on our door and screamed at us around midday, and told us to read the part of our contract about the quiet period. So I did, and Sundays aren't mentioned. 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. every day of the week. Nowhere does it state that Sundays are any different, so we carried on. He's called the police on us several times for just doing normal things such as rearranging furniture. Each time, he lied to the police that he had come to talk to us about it first, which he had not. The reasons included things like dropping things too often and using the stairs at night. These reasons are, of course, ridiculous, but each time I've just shown them the contract which all residents sign. If he's signed the contract, he consents to me making noise during these periods. We complained to the letting agency that he was harassing us for simply making the normal amount of noise people make from living in an apartment. However, nothing changed. I checked with our neighbors to see if they had any complaints about our noise level, and they all said no. After he called the police several times, I decided something had to be done. I went down to the neighbor with a copy of the house rules, which we've all signed, and told him to please read them, specifically the exact times which are the quiet period. Then, for the next week or so, any hammering, drilling, or other loud things I had to do, I saved for 9:50 p.m. Even if I didn't have anything I needed to do, I made sure to make noise right up until 10 p.m. After I did this for about a week, we stopped hearing from him, and haven't had any noise complaints since. And it's been several months now. Now, a couple of heavy metal fans have moved into the apartment next to him, and I couldn't be happier. If he's specifically referring to the quiet period, then he should know what times those are, and understand that you're allowed to make noise anytime you want in between. Especially if you're just moving in and stuff, of course there's going to be some furniture moving and things like that. And yeah, people drop stuff. Anyone who's ever lived in an apartment knows that, yeah, you can hear a lot of what goes on upstairs. There does need to be some level of respect, but this sounds like this guy was just taking it overboard. You guys are just making the normal amount of noise someone would make. Entitled customer insists I reopen the restaurant just for him. I've been working at a Subway restaurant for the past 2 years from the end of high school through my first year of college. I take classes in the morning and afternoon, so when I work it's usually a closing shift, only working 15 hours a week. I am a full-time student after all. The only issue is I close by myself, so it really toys with my anxiety whenever I get a rush, or can't finish off certain duties by a certain time. So by the end of the night, I'm usually so out of it mentally and just want to get home ASAP. We close at 10 o'clock, So tonight, I was closing like usual, and I really wanted to get home as early as I could to finish an assignment due at midnight. So, of course, with my luck, it ends up being one of the busiest nights we've had in a while, because they recently sent out coupons for BOGO footlongs after 4 p.m. Such a dumb move, especially for alone closers. So by the time 10 rolls around, I'm finishing up the dishes, cleaning the line, counting the bread, wraps, bowls, etc., and I go to lock the door at 10. And as I'm turning off the open sign, a guy walks in, and I tell him, sorry, we're closed. He wittily responds, oh, then how'd I get in here? I respond, I was walking to lock the door right now. You have to leave, sir. No, I want a sandwich. At this point, I'm just thinking if this guy's ballsy enough to tell a business worker to stay open after hours because he wants service, then I don't know what he could do. So I decide to make him his sandwich just to make him go away. He proceeds to take a good 2 to 3 more minutes just staring at the menu. I was fuming. Every dagger imaginable coming from my eyes was hitting his stare. I make his sandwich, then we move to the cash register. I go to put in the sandwich, tell him his total, and he pulls out a $50 bill. Holy crap! I get so excited because we can't accept bills over 20, and I pray he doesn't have another method of payment. I tell him the bad news. He, of course, gets angry, saying to break it anyway. Well, good thing I just dropped most of the money from the register into our safe before I went to lock up, so I literally couldn't give him proper change for the 50. I explain this to him as I slide his sub to the side where he can't reach it, and he just leaves in a fit of rage. I proceeded to then take that sub home and eat it whilst finishing up my assignment and turning it in on time. Honestly, if he wasn't such a commanding jerk, I would have just gave him the sub and told him not to worry about it. But if you're gonna force me to do my job past our posted hours and be a jerk about it, you're not getting a break. Again, anyone who's worked in retail or any kind of customer service has dealt with this customer. They don't seem to understand the meaning of "we're closed" and that you're literally unable to serve them. Maybe the cash registers are closed, or like you said, you've already deposited all the cash into the safe and are unable to give change. Maybe you've already turned off the ovens and everything for the night and packed up all the lettuce. You're supposed to undo all that just to make them a sandwich because they couldn't get there 5 minutes earlier? That's not your problem. It happens to everyone. You're late sometimes. Just accept it. Come back tomorrow and try again. I told my family if they don't stop trying to set me up with someone, they'll never see me or my daughter again. My wife passed away suddenly after giving birth to our daughter 5 years ago. My parents and sisters have spent the last 4 years telling me to move on. I can't. You know how amputees get phantom pain in their missing limbs? It's like that, except it's everything that's missing. I took my daughter to a street performers festival in my city, and my heart ached because I went to buy some kettle corn. I hate kettle corn, but my wife loved it. I was buying something I hate for someone who isn't there. My mother did the cruelest thing I can imagine. She told my daughter that she should ask for a new mommy for her birthday. I wasn't polite in dealing with that. I told her that if her or my sisters ever tried to bring a woman into my life, I would leave the city with my daughter, and they would never see us again. Now, all 3 of my sisters and my father have called me to yell at me for threatening my mother and them. They say that they're only trying to help, and that I'm a jerk for not accepting the inevitable. First of all, I'm very sorry for your loss. That's not an easy thing for anyone to deal with. It really does sound like you cared about your wife a lot and you guys had a great relationship. That's not something that's necessarily easy to replace, especially when you have constant reminders of her and your child. It sounds like you've already got a lot going on. If the interest isn't there, there's no point forcing a relationship because anything you do try and do isn't gonna be heartfelt. If you're not giving it your all, then it's not really worth it. It really sucks that your family doesn't seem to understand what you're going through, and I'm sorry that that's the case. But if you need your space and they can't accept that, then maybe you just need to take that space. My daughter ditched her siblings and cousins at the zoo when they were all supposed to be there to spend time together. I have 3 kids, 7, 8, and 10. and my sister has 2, 7 and 10. We went on vacation together recently and we took the kids to a zoo that also had a few rides. The kids went on the rides while my sister and I got coffee nearby. We told them to meet us at a certain table when they're done. My 8-year-old came to me much earlier than her siblings and cousins. I asked if the ride scared her, and she said no, she just skipped the lines. I asked for clarification, and she said when there was extra space on the ride, they asked for single riders to come up to the front. So she did that for all 5 rides. I told her the point of her going with her siblings and cousins is to have fun with them, and that it was selfish of her to leave them so she could cut the line. I told her I understand why she doesn't have many friends if this is how she acts all the time, and she started to cry and ran to my sister. My sister ended up buying her ice cream and said that I was too harsh. She told my husband, and he's mad at me for speaking to her like that. Am I the jerk for calling my daughter selfish? I'm just gonna open this with, if the fight's between you and an 8-year-old and you're not sure if you're the jerk, you're probably the jerk. They're 8 years old. They just don't know any better. It's perfectly understandable that the kid just wants to get to the front of the line and ride the ride. Is it a little selfish? Yes. But the comments you made just went way too far, especially about her not having any friends. I understand that there's a lesson you're trying to teach here, but this is an 8-year-old child. You're 8-year-old child. Try to do it with just a little bit of sensitivity.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.